The weather was perfect that day, marking the celebration of the transfer ceremony to the second school in the city of Lijiang. An animated group of students gathered in a spacious courtyard, surrounded by castle-like structures, giving the place a majestic atmosphere that stood out against the vegetation. In front of the assembled students, the director of the institution, Luo Hend, a bald man, imparted words of wisdom to everyone present. You have a single opportunity to shape your future destiny, so ponder carefully about your choices. He advised against being solely swayed by combat-related professions, emphasizing that careers in mechanics and summoning required considerable resources, something challenging for ordinary people. The impact of the speech left everyone present extremely excited and full of expectations. Some aspired to become berserkers, eager to awaken as true hunting machines, while others aimed to pursue the path of pharmacy. Among those present, a young woman expressed her thoughts, eliciting a reaction from a blue-haired boy who mockingly questioned, "Aha, is it true that you're afraid of dying?" Years ago, a revolutionary virtual reality game called Iteral was released. The unique experience and thrilling battles provided by the game led people to become increasingly addicted. However, one day, an intense green light broke through the skies, enveloping the entire city. The landscape was drastically transformed, with skeletal monsters flying through the still-tinted skies. The Earth's surface expanded enormously, giving rise to numerous dungeons and bringing with it a variety of monsters and alien races. Chaos descended upon the city, with the opening of multiple portals generating fear and widespread panic. Screams echoed as desperate people fled in all directions, trying to distance themselves as much as possible. At that moment, the game intertwined with reality, allowing all humans to enhance their powers, exchanging and improving their classes to fight against the emerging monsters. It had been a year since our protagonist, Zhou Yi, found himself immersed in this new world. A common young man, his arms wrapped in bandages, carrying a serious expression. Before delving into the current events in Zhou Yi's life, it is crucial to revisit a significant moment in his history, the death of his mother. This was a period that preceded the adoption of his new identity. Soon after, his sister, Zhou Yun, succumbed to a mysterious illness for which conventional doctors had no solution. Desperate, Zhou Yi sold his house and sought help even among relatives, resorting to low-level priests in an attempt to keep his sister alive. However, the truth remained cruel, as the origin of the disease remained a mystery, and his sister's life hung by a thread, able to die at any moment. With no alternatives in the face of escalating medical costs and his already insufficient part-time income, Zhou Yi was determined to switch his class to combat. His goal was to clear dungeons to earn money and take his sister to more advanced treatments by the priests. In the midst of this determination, a level 24 mage indicated a circle, announcing that the transfer ceremony was about to begin. As the students' identifications were mentioned, they headed towards the magic circle. The mage raised his staff towards the circle, and a purple light began to form, completely filling the space. The activation of the circle caused an intense wave of energy that made many students shield themselves, placing their arms in front of their faces. It was just a brief demonstration of the power of a level 24 mage. The surprising revelation for Zhou Yi was that the mage class responsible for conducting transfer ceremonies could earn around 6 figures in money. Shortly after, Professor Li Xiangyang from Class 5, holding a stack of papers, announced the first name, Zheng Cheng. He was a red-haired boy standing next to Zhou Yi, who promptly raised his hands, responding, "Present." Moving to the center of the circle where the purple light emanated, a strong wind spun around him, capturing everyone's attention. Although there were thousands of classes available for exchange, in this ceremony, only 3 professions most suitable for each individual would be revealed. In this world where monsters were abundant and evil creatures wreaked havoc, combat professions were the most useful and respected, in contrast to support classes, whose status was considered lower. Zheng Cheng expressed his frustration as he prostrated himself on the ground, disappointed that only classes like Pharmacist, Enchanter, and Decomposer had appeared for him. Clenching his fists on the ground, he exclaimed, "My God, how unlucky!" According to the probabilities of previous years, some people still held hope of eventually switching to a combat class. Among the 3 options that appeared for him, Enchanter was considered the most promising. After several names were called, finally, number 31 was announced, Zhou Yu. He took a deep breath, his eyes reflecting not fear, but confidence. With determination, our protagonist headed towards the circle, remembering that academic performance and attributes were not decisive factors at this moment, where equality prevailed. At this crucial moment in our protagonist's life, a man questioned Professor Lao Li about how many students from his class would move to the combat class. The answer was that only 16 would have this opportunity. The man then began to boast, mentioning that in his class there were 21 fighters and all indicators were according to plan, provoking Lao Li's anger. However, something caught everyone's attention. Turning to the center of the circle, the man asked, "What's happening with the class monitor? Is he frozen?" The wind hovering over the circle began to envelop our protagonist, who remained with closed eyes. The breeze became more intense, even causing his shirt to sway rhythmically. Opening only one eye, Zhou noticed that his necklace was shining more brightly and had moved away from his body. Gradually, the glow became more vibrant, taking on a golden hue. From inside the necklace, a tangible light radiated through the surroundings, leaving Zhou surprised and questioning what it could be. The light emanated the energy of a system being created. Once the activation was complete, various notification screens appeared in front of Zhou, informing him that the upload was complete. The most robust professional auxiliary system had been activated, along with a S+ level talent and the protection of the divine angel. Zhou rubbed his eyes, unable to believe what he was witnessing. A system? He questioned himself, but upon opening his eyes, notifications requesting acceptance of the divine protection still remained before him. Is this a real system? He wondered to himself. He raised his hand and touched the screen, recalling that he had acquired this necklace at a street stall in his previous life and had always kept it with him. In the past, he had tried to activate it several times without success, leading him to believe that maybe it was just a kind of treasure. Incredulously, he realized that this was indeed a miracle. The system screen indicated a divine angel protection of S+ ranking, and his affinity with light had increased significantly. He concluded that the effects of all abilities, divinities, and light were doubled. In this world, talents range from F to S level, and the higher the level, the better the amplification effect. Remembering this, Zhou smiled with hope, as the 3 optional classes that appeared in the ceremony were directly related to talents. While our protagonist marveled at his new gift, exploring the screens of a newly created system for him, others watched, wondering why he remained standing there. Some even questioned if he didn't want to switch classes, although that seemed unlikely, as something like this had never happened before. Suddenly, before everyone, a golden light cut vertically through the sky, completely altering the atmosphere of the place. The sky, once blue and full of clouds, took on a rosy hue with some golden rain-laden clouds emerging above all, leaving everyone stunned. The director, perplexed, asked the mage beside him, "Is this a class transfer phenomenon?" To which he replied, "No, it's a vision of talent awakening." Descending from above was a divine being with 3 pairs of wings. As it descended, some feathers detached, falling all around, and the entity approached Zhou, who remained enchanted by the beauty of this creature. His fixed eyes sparkled in the face of such perfection, while his necklace responded to the brilliance of the moment. The divine being had long hair that reached the waist, a beautiful face, and, instead of eyes, a golden blindfold. Everyone was amazed by what was happening. It was indeed a divine entity, graceful and imposing, hovering over Zhou, saying, "The light is your belief and the source of your strength." She extended her hands, smiled, and continued to say, "With the support of faith, the sacred light will always protect you and burn away all evil." As she nearly touched Zhou, our protagonist's body lifted, raising his head still in awe, responding to the touch. The angel began to transform into light, dematerializing towards the touch on Zhou's face. Finally, only the outline of her wings remained marked on his forehead, which at this moment remained with closed eyes. Upon opening them, a strong energy penetrated his body, his eyes gleamed in shades of green and gold, and a 4-pointed star symbol appeared in the center of his forehead and eyes. The sweet voice of the angel still echoed, saying, "Yet, I will always be by your side." Next, the light enveloping our protagonist seemed to burn through his entire body. His hair stood on end, his eyes widened with brilliance, and he let out a silent scream, as if undergoing a shock. Suddenly, that moment ceased, giving way to the appearance of 3 figures hovering over him. The people who were there, watching, were incredibly astonished, in shock. One of the students approached his teacher, questioning if gaining new talents during the class transfer ceremony was a matter of luck. Another, hands on his head, wondered if the divine angel's protection vow would be a new talent acquired by Zhou. However, the prevailing question was, what kind of classes are these? Professor Li, perplexed, his eyes fixed and unmoving, couldn't believe it. He only uttered the words, "This is," as he was surrounded by questions. The reality was that these 3 figures in front of Zhou represented the hidden class. Before him were the options of his choice, the Light Mage, the Sacred Priest, and the Paladin. The Light Mage is a purely offensive class, capable of generating explosions but with limited abilities for life-saving, making it vulnerable in a world dominated by extraterrestrials. The priest, on the other hand, possesses many healing abilities and even the incredible power of resurrection. However, his own combat ability is practically non-existent, making him dependent on others, which might be unsuitable for Zhou Yi. The Paladin, in turn, is a balanced tank, capable of both resisting and attacking. For Zhou Yi, none of the options seemed perfect, but the gift of the light affinity was present. Considering it to be the most suitable choice, Zhou Yi placed his hand on his selection, becoming a Paladin. The figure of the Paladin rises, revealing itself as a massive knight in armor, holding on his shoulders a weapon resembling a judge's hammer. Before him, Zhou Yi seems like a mere ant. The knight begins to move, narrating the fundamental pillars: humility, honor, heroism, compassion, responsibility, and finally, he slams his weapon on the ground as the voice resonates, "Do what is right." Looking down at the small figure below, the Paladin concludes by saying, "A perpetual quest for justice and righteousness. That is to be a Paladin." Zhou Yi meets the gaze with a serious expression, showing that he takes seriously all the commitments mentioned by the imposing knight. Facing each other, the Paladin shines, leaving traces of light passing between him and Zhou Yi in perfect harmony. This same light envelops the body of our protagonist, his legs. Suddenly, 6 beams of light penetrate his back, unifying the figure of an angel with its imposing wings and the Paladin covered in golden armor. The system notification congratulates our protagonist on the profession change, now transformed into a Paladin. Beneath the helmet, Zhou Yi's face expresses conviction that he has just made the right choice. Upon concluding his ceremony, Zhou Yi was warmly welcomed by his classmates and schoolmates. Everyone wanted to be part of the same team, claiming that together they would achieve a high score. Some declared themselves wizards and asked to be called upon when Zhou Yi needed help. However, one person pushed everyone around, saying, "Don't cluster together, step back." Changing his mood completely, this man, with shining eyes, approached our protagonist, praising him and emphasizing how amazing everything had been. He asked Zhou Yi to rest for today, as he would need to report to the director's office the next day. Despite the comical scene, Laoban's actions frightened Zhou Yi, who tried to discreetly distance himself. After a while, our protagonist was already relaxed in his room, analyzing the distribution points that were still available for allocation. Frantically, he began to fill in the points, prioritizing the increase in strength, followed by physical fitness. Attacks with enough lethality to defeat monsters would be much more efficient. After completion, he had 26 points in strength, 20 in constitution, 18 in speed, and 16 in intelligence. Within moments, Zhou Yi could feel the energy bubbling through his entire body, a result of the changes in his attributes. As the energy enveloped his body, the sensation he experienced was refreshing. As a result of activating the points, the system also notified him of his first mission as a Paladin, consisting of a daily routine of one-on-one duels. Zhou Yi found it all interesting, and the rewards were great, so there was no reason not to accept. He clicked the confirmation button, and suddenly, a light began to envelop his finger. In an instant, he was engulfed in this light. The system was pairing with a random field compatible with his level. Once completed, a message appeared. "Kill the E-rank monster Gulabi." Zhou Yi was surprised by the rest of the message. "Please take this test seriously. If you die in the test, you will die in reality." Zhou Yi was already in a kind of mine, with no living soul around. He remembered from books that the Gulabi monsters lived in mines and, although not carnivorous, were still bloodthirsty and violent when they spotted humans. As he searched for these monsters, one of them appeared behind him, attempting to catch him by surprise. However, quickly, our protagonist noticed the failed attempt, emphasizing how they were dumb. They were monsters with impactful attacks, sharp claws capable of easily cutting through minerals. In the same instant, Zhou Yi skillfully dodged this onslaught. Excited to be facing a monster for the first time, he wanted to test himself, to see if he could defeat them without using any skills. Zhou Yi prepared for a leap and, propelling himself, landed a bit farther from the creature. Realizing that his body had become more flexible and his jumping ability had also improved, a result of the increased points in the 4 attributes. He got up, turned to face the Gulabi that was already charging at him. The monster tried to hit him again with its sharp claws. However, Zhou Yi managed to dodge. And not just once, but every time he achieved the same result. Our confident protagonist boasted as the Gulabis were slow, and with that, he could see the entire trajectory of their movements. However, what he did not expect was for the creature to use its sharp tail to come at him and hit him head-on. He ended up being thrown against the wall. Zhou Yi, surprised to see a huge hole in his stomach and the vast amount of blood gushing from it, froze, unable to take any action. Automatically, the golden energy began to emanate from him, and he, weakened, had to drastically support his hand and knee on the ground, still dripping a lot of blood. Seeing our protagonist fallen and weakened, the Gulabis now appeared as an imposing creature. Zhou Yi, putting his hand on the wound, saw a golden light emanate from it and said to himself, monsters don't care how much you trained in school. He applied a level 1 self-healing, which would take about 30 seconds, restoring a certain amount of health to 2 teammates within a certain distance. Zhou Yi stood up, his wound healed, affirming that he could not be underestimated by a low-level monster. The Gulabis focused, threatening him again with its claws, but this time, it was our protagonist's turn to counter-attack. Zhou Yi positioned his 2 hands in front, and a light appeared. In a cross shape, it was directed towards the creature as his hands turned backward. Everything lit up, and this ability was called Pure White Blade, Level 1, Rank C. After the strike, the attack would inflict magical damage. He propelled himself again, activating the Level 4 Tiger attack. It involved grabbing an enemy and running forward for a certain distance before throwing them. While running, he could deal damage with multiple attacks along the way. His charge was so violent that several debris fell in his wake. He advanced toward the creature and pushed it against the wall, causing damage. Zhou Yi clenched his fists, which were already surrounded by golden light, and said, "Let's go, my dear." From the body of the Gulabi, various lights emanated while it was still pressed against the wall. These lights were traces of the multiple punches delivered by our protagonist. The attacks persisted until a notification appeared, informing that the Gulabi monster had been defeated, and the test was complete with a rating of A. He could choose 3 rewards among 10 additional attribute points, acquiring Paladin abilities, or obtaining random Paladin equipment. Our protagonist stopped for a moment, analyzing all his possibilities. Attribute points and abilities are the source of a professional's power, but he was not in a hurry to improve his skills as he could still obtain these points for free. A good weapon would be of great help for the future, but the system would provide weapons as rewards. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to afford them. He opted for attribute points and random equipment, winning a simple one-handed sword. Next, the entire test area dematerialized in front of him, and in no time, he was back in his room, while a vibrant sound was heard coming from his pocket. He picked up his phone, saw that it was already 5 in the evening, and realized he needed to go to the hospital. There, a girl named Zhou Yun watches the news on television, where the reporter informs, "The miracle of the appearance of a holy angel occurred in a student's class acquisition. According to sources, the student awakened a talent before acquisition and joined the secret class, the Paladin. This was the first time a secret class had appeared in the city in 50 years. As Yoon listens to the news, her heartbeat is monitored. She is the sister of our protagonist. At this moment, the head nurse enters her room, turns off the television with an annoyed expression. Irritated, she shows Yoon a paper containing the medical expenses and shouts while hitting the remote on the paper. "It's time to pay the bills, it's 10,000! 10,000! The girl is frightened. "Why did it increase so much? Wasn't it 5,000? Is this some mistake?" Yoon is worried about this increase because her brother works 3 jobs to earn exactly 5,000 yuan. Where would he get the rest of the money? The nurse didn't want to hear it. Crossing her arms, she threw in Yoon's face all the care she had during this period, the amount of medicine that was necessary, and even the number of times she had worsened. Her stress increased more and more, leaving the atmosphere heavy with her words. "Such a young girl, if you think something is wrong, you go and figure it out. This is a hospital." Yun stammered, trying to explain that she might have misunderstood everything, but she kept talking without realizing that behind her, there was a hand approaching. Nevertheless, she did not stop saying, "If you don't have money, don't get a rich person's disease. Just accept your fate." But she interrupted herself, feeling the man's hand on her shoulder and his voice calling her in a gentler yet threatening tone. When the nurse turned around, she saw 2 men in suits. One of them, with a gentle smile, mentioned that he had overheard the conversation and highlighted the insults that had been generated. Then, he threatened, "I wonder if the nurse will continue to act this way after a visit to the director's office." The nurse scowled, judging the first impression she had of the men, and they certainly didn't seem like good-natured people, so she decided to leave. However, reaching the door, she asserted sternly, "You must pay the medical bills today." Yoon was startled because she didn't know either of the men in front of her and asked who they were, wondering if they had come to collect a debt. Gently, the man extended his hand, showing his business card, and introduced himself as a friend of her brother. Joey entered his sister's room, distractedly looking at the hospital system paper that showed over 100,000 wen in the account. He asked if she knew what was happening, but inside the room were the answers to his questions. Yoon became excited at his appearance, saying, "Big brother," while Zhou Yi, surprised, just wondered who they were. The gentler man extended his arm in greeting, introducing himself as Zhao Wenbin, the mayor's secretary. He would like to talk about some things. Our protagonist, analyzing the sudden greeting, knew that the mayor was the city's biggest tycoon, and sometimes his secretary could even represent him. So, he wondered why someone like him had come to see him. They shook hands, formalizing the introductions. Then, Zhou Yi informed that it was not appropriate to talk in that room, suggesting going somewhere else. Wenbin instructed his companion to stay with the girl, while he and Mr. Zhou talked elsewhere. The other man simply confirmed with an okay, while continuing to play cat's cradle with Yun. In a slightly more distant place, some comments were heard. A woman remarked that everyone had an idea of what was happening at the academy, stating that someone had managed to join the hidden class. The woman showed her phone to two more friends, confirming that the person's name was Zhou Yi, and even had his photo in school. One of them had even made a comment about how handsome he was. In this same location, Zhou Yi himself was present with the mayor's secretary, Wenbin. Wenbin started the conversation by congratulating him on the S-class profession, the guardian of the saint, and his transfer to the Paladin. In response, our protagonist simply said, "It was just good luck." However, Wenbin emphasized that obtaining such a notable talent in a normal ceremony is not something that can be considered mere luck, highlighting that the mayor attached great importance to it. He informed that the mayor had expressly requested that nobody from the media bother him. The man placed a box on the table containing a golden glowing key. He explained that his boss had also specially arranged a batch of resources for Zhou Yi to prepare for the grand exam. These resources were stored in the city bank's vault, and this was the only key. The secretary stressed that if our protagonist had any other special requests, he shouldn't hesitate to communicate them. Zhou Yi remained silent, just observing that gleaming key. He knew that in the eyes of the mayor, he probably believed that Zhou Yi would become a giant and that investing heavily in him wouldn't do any harm. However, as Milton Friedman once said, there's no such thing as a free lunch, especially in that world. Obviously, the mayor was hoping that one day this could be repaid. Knowing that this might not be enough, the secretary stated that from that moment on, a professional medical team would be available 24 hours to attend to Miss Zhou Yun, along with a level 36 priest who would be in the city in a month to attend to her specifically. At this point, there was no more doubt that they had discovered the weakness of our protagonist. Zhou Yi closed the little box with a simple smile, just thanking for the generous offer. After some time at the hospital, Yun was excited as her brother recounted his big news. With a charming twinkle in her eyes, she joked, "Brother, you're going to fly to the sky. Can I hang onto your legs?" Our protagonist flicked his sister's head, affirming that after this, she really needed to take even better care of herself. Curious, Yun asked about his abilities, as they are unique to each class. Reflecting on it, after the class change, only 3 specific abilities emerged for the Paladin. Pure White Blade played the role of the main attack. The slow regeneration ability took on the function of the primary healing, and the weapon blessing acted as support. At that moment, an idea popped into his mind. Can slow regeneration restore my little sister's health? He gently placed his hand on her head, and an energetic light began to emanate from his hand, indicating the use of this ability. Suddenly, the light intensified, enveloping Yun like a capsule that emitted a glow exclusively over her. Yun, with closed eyes and serene, could express how good she felt. In her thoughts, the sensation was like being in a hot tub, where small beings performed relaxing massages all over her body. After this wonderful moment, she could only hear her brother asking if she felt better, struggling even to open her eyes. However, as if by magic, she became completely excited because she no longer felt pain in her hands and sensed a comforting warmth. Our protagonist smiled, aware that he had made the right class choice. His concern for strength harmoniously blended with the care for his sister's health. The Paladin, being a support class, offered this unique combination. Even if he couldn't heal her completely, the ability to alleviate some of her suffering was already gratifying. The next day, the school director approached Zhou Yi, revealing that his phone nearly exploded due to the large number of calls from colleges and universities interested in a special recruitment. At that moment, teachers from 4 of the top 10 universities were present to evaluate him. Zhou Yi needed to deliver a remarkable performance and strive to secure the best resources. He explained to our protagonist that all these teachers were at the 2nd level and above level 35. Achieving a special recruitment would undoubtedly open doors to advanced training in the future. Curious, our protagonist asked which universities were interested in him. In response, he heard University of Rongyang, Sichuan University, Anji University, and Seoul National University. However, Zhou Yi showed surprise, asking about the absence of the top 3. Luo Hend explained that these institutions relied solely on entrance exam results, regardless of talent or class, and did not promote special recruitments. Upon reaching the destination behind the door, various conversations centered around fighter jets and their characteristics could be heard. The discussion was interrupted when the director opened the door, accompanied by our protagonist. In the room were the teachers mentioned by Luo Hend. Cordially, the director introduced them. Dear admissions office professors, the top student, Zhou Yi, is here. At that moment, the director introduced each of the present teachers, starting with Zhao Tianfu from Rongyan University, followed by Li Bing from Sichuan University. Professor Zhu Yu represented Seoul National University, and finally, Professor Yu Yuan from Anji University. Zhou Yi bowed in greeting to all the teachers, displaying his polite nature, and this attitude pleased everyone, as it did not allow arrogance to take over, even after achieving a hidden class. Once the greetings ceased, Professor Tianfu got straight to the point, asking for permission to discuss the conditions of his university, which was not well received by Li Bing. Nevertheless, Tianfu continued, "If you choose our university, you will receive 2 million yuans and 3 exclusive Paladin skill books." This offer impressed Zhou Yi, considering that an average family has a monthly income of 6,000 yuans, and Rongyan University was offering 2 million. Moreover, the Paladin skill books were resources to which ordinary people did not have access. Not even the mayor offered benefits like these. However, the offers didn't stop there. Li Bing presented an even more generous proposal, offering 3 million for admission to Sichuan University, along with 3 class skill books per year, 3 transfers at level 56, and most importantly, a dedicated paladin who would personally instruct him. This surprised both the director and Zhou Yi himself. Level 56 individuals were the closest to the top of the world, and if our protagonist became their student, his future could truly be limitless. Everyone seemed astonished, but a red-haired woman seemed quite calm, saying, Boys, this is just child's play. We need more sincerity." Then she explained that the admission fee for Seoul National University was not very high, only 2 million. But upon enrollment, they would immediately provide a B-level practice resource. "B-level practice resources," exclaimed Director Luo Hend, incredulous. He immediately turned to our protagonist, wide-eyed, veins bulging in his head, and smoke coming out of his nostrils, shouting even louder. "Say yes, quickly! B-level training resources cannot be measured with money." The reality was that with these celestial materials and earthly treasures, even a pig could transform into the most powerful monster. The woman, pressing for an answer, asked which proposal he would choose among them. Zhou Yi humbly thanked everyone but declined the invitation for the special recruitment. This decision surprised the director, who asked him not to be impulsive. Professor Zhu Yu, with a stern expression, wanted to know the reason for this refusal. Our protagonist then responded simply. He aspired to be admitted to the top 3 universities. Among the top 10 universities, the 3 main ones were Suhang University, Qingjing University, and Magic University. They boasted the highest status and were recognized as the top educational institutions in China. They admitted only one group of first-year students each year, and the enrollment quota was not limited to humans. It also included extraterrestrial beings like elves and giants. Alien races by themselves were stronger than humans, and with the vast Chinese territory full of talents, the competition to enter these 3 universities was extremely fierce. The teachers were perplexed by Zhou Yi's statement. The bald man burst into loud laughter, saying, "Ah-ha-ha-ha! I thought you were a promising seed, but it seems you're just a fool." Filled with anger, he began releasing his blue energy, flowing throughout his body. He claimed to have read all of Zhou Yi's information, highlighting the many losses in the first 18 years and the lack of good resources to compensate. His strength was weak, and attribute values were low. The energy released by the teacher caused a lot of initial pressure on Zhou Yi. If he had felt this pressure yesterday, he would already be on his knees. The teacher continued to talk about the extreme difficulty of entering these universities with Zhou Yi's current abilities, emphasizing that even if he succeeded, he would be among the worst. Without vigorous and precise training, he would remain one of the worst for the rest of his life. Upon realizing the intense pressure caused by the teacher's energy on Zhou Yi, the director immediately intervened, channeling his own energy. Standing in front of the teacher, he confronted him and said, "So, you're going to intimidate my students in my territory?" Even in the face of the intense power pressure released by both, our protagonist resisted, catching the attention of the woman, who found his resistance truly impressive. Taking a deep breath, Tianfu assessed the situation and then turned away, stating that student recruitment depended not only on potential, but also on character. With such character, success would be difficult. With that, all the teachers bid farewell to the director, acknowledging our protagonist's ambitions. Everyone left except for the woman. She recognized Zhu Yi's courage, but agreed that what Professor Zhao said was not an exaggeration. She explained that there were numerous geniuses in China, as well as alien races whose strength surpassed theirs. Zhu Yi smiled and stated that he would use his exam scores to demonstrate his strength. With only 1 month left until the big exam and the support of the system, he was confident that he could elevate his strength to a frightening level. Thus, the top 3 universities would be available for his choice. Lost in her thoughts, the teacher admired Ju Yi's attitude. It had been a long time since she had seen eyes so firm and profound, as if she had returned to the days when she herself fought on the front lines. She remembered that, after staying in a peaceful place for so long, her thoughts had been shaped only to seek stability. She smiled and also bid farewell, expressing anticipation to see him in the exam. 1 month had passed, and the big exam was about to begin. A massive stadium awaited with a large audience in the stands. In the center, participants were arranged in rows in front of an imposing portal. Everyone was eager, nervous, discussing possible questions. Some talked about Ju Yi and how he had declined special recruitment because his goal was to enter the top 3 universities. Some called him arrogant, emphasizing his confidence due to possessing a rare and hidden class. The conversation ceased when one of the guys spotted our protagonist. Ju Yi walked past them with a serious expression, exuding an energy that made the guys a bit uncomfortable. The pressure he conveyed made those around him realize that he was somewhat different, as even his breath exuded strength. Ju Yi now stood before the imposing portal, ready to face any challenge. The grand portal indicated the entrance to the dungeon levels 10 to 13, with difficulty ranging from easy to hard. The depths of the dark forest housed demonic felines and cruel minotaurs, known for their preference for human flesh. It was only 30 seconds until its opening. The participants, crowded together, exchanged information about the dungeon's terrain. The dark forest was mainly composed of swamps. The demonic felines were agile, while the minotaurs were resilient. The maximum number of people required to form a team and enter the dungeon represented its difficulty. Everyone was apprehensive, because in previous years the required number was 3 people, but this year it increased to 5. A man, seemingly in charge of the exam, drew everyone's attention, urging them to remember to do their best and use a return scroll in case of mortal danger in the dungeon, emphasizing that death inside was real death. He advised them with the words, "Prefer to fail the exam than lose your life." The countdown clock signaled the end of the designated time, and the instructor exclaimed, "Time's up! All candidates, get ready!" A blue light emerged, enveloping all participants and teleporting them into the dungeon. In the stands, everyone cheered, and the images showed some participants. From Class 1, Sun Qiang, a warrior, and also from Class 1, Mo Qing, an assassin, both without a group. Right after, also from Class 1, were Long Fei, Wang Fang, and Sun Jiam, a group of 3 with the classes Elementalist, Archer, and Underworld Mage. Next was our protagonist, Zhou Yi, a paladin from Class 5, also alone. Finally, a group of 4 people from Class 2 appeared, with the classes Archer, Fire Mage, Swordsman, and a healer. In the audience, people commented on how predictable all of this was. A young man explained that the experience itself was exclusive. The higher the score in the university entrance exam, the greater the risk of death. Only the best in the class would dare to face such a challenge. One of the girls pointed excitedly, saying, "Look, that's Zhou Yi!" Our protagonist appeared again on the screen, and behind him were various lurking eyes. Unlike the others, his difficulty level was Nightmare. The director of the education department, Jia Tao, appeared perplexed by the situation, not understanding how they could assign a nightmare difficulty to a single player. He pounded the stage and shouted, "A paladin's support ability is very strong. No matter who he works with, he is the best. Why did you want Zhou Yi to face this dungeon alone?" Clearly agitated, as he spoke to another bald man, he continued, "You also chose this nightmare difficulty with a high mortality rate." He turned to the screen again, calming down, and explained to Director Liu that this month the city had allocated many resources to Zhou Yi precisely to achieve good results. However, if he failed in the dungeon, the reputation of the entire municipal government of Lijiang would suffer a severe blow. Director Liu asked Director Jia to calm down and not worry, as Zhou Yi was not a careless person and surely must have something hidden up his sleeve. Meanwhile, in the darkness of the dungeons, only lurking eyes watched every move of those present. A shadow passed at high speed, barely identifiable, but the moment was alert. Zhou Yi took out his Justice Cleaver, radiating a golden glow, and prepared for a possible attack. Suddenly, a huge pink creature with sharp teeth and claws came to welcome him. The monster tried to grab him, grunting loudly, but Zhou Yi was already waiting and shouted, "Die!" A strong light emanated, a golden glow like the sun, as Zhou Yi used his skill single-blade axe and struck a blow at the formidable creature. Zhou Yi stared at the blood spraying around and remembered that a month had passed since he was still at level 10. The average attribute value had already reached an abnormal 47 points, equivalent to a level 13 professional. Standing there in front of two pieces of the monster, he knew he could be among the top candidates in the entire Suzhou and Hangzhou province. Two monsters still observed Zhou Yi from behind a tree, and confidently our protagonist said, "If you don't come, I'll attack myself." He activated the skill blessing of the weapon, now at level 4. His body glowed, his eyes were already golden, shining along with the mark on his forehead. He positioned his sword full of energy and cut another creature in half, leaving only traces of golden light. Under the effect of the S+ talent from the Angelic Saint's protection, the Paladin's exclusive skill, blessing of the weapons was also enhanced, and the strength of the single-blade axe increased by an additional 21. Zhou Yi continued to fight against all the monsters that appeared before him, leaving trails and explosions of yellow energy. Immersed in his thoughts during the battle, he knew that if other students discovered this powerful increase, they could feel a lot of envy. Despite everything, the exam dungeon was limited to weapons classified as 3-star bronze or lower, and the enhanced single-blade axe in his hands was a 5-star bronze quality weapon. In the grand exam, where each attribute was valuable, this was enough to create a significant gap between him and the other students. Surrounded on all sides by monsters, Zhou Yi summoned the pure white blade. He then crossed his hands, forming a cross, and shot several blades in all directions where the creatures were. Everyone who witnessed that moment vibrated with excitement. The pure white blade, boosted to level 5, had considerable light attribute damage, and with the reinforcement of the Angelic Saint's protection, Zhou Yi could instantly eliminate low-level monsters. Holding the hand of one of the monsters, he amplified his energy and shot it at one of the creatures still standing. The blow hit the middle of the monster, causing its imminent defeat. Everyone watching was completely amazed by the actions of our protagonist. They said, "This is insane. It's simply overwhelming." While others commented, "This Zhou Yi is very powerful." The vibrations didn't stop there. Someone said, "I saw that simple axe in the shopping center. It's very heavy, but Zhou Yi uses it as if it were a toy." Some wondered if he had invested his points in strength, and in response, a cross-armed and grumpy-faced man mentioned the speed comparison between the demonic feline and our protagonist. Not only the speed, but even his axe was extremely fast and powerful. So, the free points, like wisdom, definitely weren't low. The angle of the axe, the attack distance, and the intensity were very well controlled. The reality was that Zhou Yi was simply a combat genius. Our protagonist was being observed and analyzed by various people. One of the teachers observed another colleague who was intensely analyzing that battle and thought, "How did someone so talented end up in Class 5? While another man, with a more severe expression, affirmed that this student, Zhou Yi, really had a strong sense of combat. However, what he did was reckless. The first wave of felines was a waste of energy. In the Nightmare Difficulty dungeon, demons not only have great strength but also a large quantity. At this moment, Zhou Yi was surrounded, and there were various monsters on all sides. Seeing this situation, the man completed his analysis. Not even the best mage could falter due to magical power exhaustion. The weight of the axe itself is a huge burden for a professional. He might not feel it when cutting once or twice, but if he cuts hundreds of times in a row, he won't have the strength to lift the axe, and eventually, he'll be torn apart by the demonic felines. The demonic felines were everywhere, eager for the human flesh that Zhou Yi represented. Jumping toward our protagonist, Zhou Yi focused only, knowing that the next wave of felines was coming, and there might not be time to breathe. There should be at least 100 demonic felines in the area. The question on everyone's mind in that tense moment was, could Zhou Yi escape from this? With all those felines coming his way, hungry and thirsty, Zhou Yi had his attack ready, and, with his axe, left only the trail of energy in the air, cutting the felines closest to him. Again, he positioned himself, joined his two hands to form the cross of his skill, and shot while leaping in the air, aiming to hit those fearsome creatures. As he descended to the ground, Zhou Yi quickly spun his weapon, turning it into a spinning lance that cut any monster that dared to approach. He struck his final blow on a monster trying to reach him. Slowly, the lance aimed at the head of that creature, and with just one touch, the last monster fell, leaving Zhou Yi standing in front of that terrain now surrounded by dead monsters. Suddenly, in front of him, a blue circle opened, catching the attention of our protagonist, and expanded until it became a complete portal. This portal was the entrance to the next level. Confidently, Zhou Yi put his weapon on his shoulder, walked towards the portal, and passed through it. On the other side, dozens of creatures were already waiting for him, all hungry for human flesh, ready to make Zhou Yi their afternoon snack. In the live broadcast on Kwaikan, the presenter gestured toward the large screen, displaying images of the participants' feats. He referred to himself as the favorite host, narrating to his audience, What we are witnessing now is excellence incarnate, the most outstanding and popular student from the Second Academy, holder of the rare Class S talent, and the brilliant champion in the Great Challenge, our esteemed Zhou Yi. The presenter brimmed with enthusiasm. His face lit up as he pointed to the timer, exclaiming, "He conquered the first level of the Nightmare Dungeon in an incredible time, just 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Folks, this is absolutely extraordinary." As the young man pointed out that this surpassed the record of the previous year's favorite, the cameraman gently asked him not to block the lens, sensing the tension in the situation. In the audience, a spectator commented on our protagonist's frenetic movements, noting that he seemed a bit exhausted towards the end. This prompted a question about how many physical points Joe had. Quickly, a young woman in the audience enthusiastically responded, explaining that Director Jia had warned about the risk of depleting his energy during the initial encounter with the monsters, but she still expressed some skepticism regarding the director's words upon seeing the young man on the screen. Master Lee then intervened in the conversation, emphasizing the importance of carefully analyzing the exam, suggesting that Director Jia's words might not be entirely trustworthy. The girl noticed Master Lee's disguised smile, questioning his true happiness in the moment. Despite Lee crossing his arms and telling her not to talk nonsense, he soon placed his hands on his own cheeks, reflecting to himself, "Is the smile on my face that obvious?" The narrator continues to comment on our protagonist, who was already facing a variety of monsters after passing through the Door of Light. The monsters awaiting him had different levels and classifications, each with diverse abilities. Joey began to analyze his situation, noticing the presence of fluorescent feline demons acting as priests, fiery feline demons playing the role of mages, and dark feline demons steeped in curse. Additionally, there was a silver minotaur capable of inflicting extremely high damage, making the combination of their attacks even more dangerous. If in the first level of the dungeon, Zhou Yi faced individual adversaries, now, in the second level, he would confront a well-trained army, thus increasing the threat of death 100-fold. Suddenly, all those creatures unleashed a deafening roar, filling the dungeon with thunderous and terrifying sounds, especially as they displayed their mouths full of sharp teeth. In no time, the creatures began to advance towards our protagonist, some attacking directly while others stayed in the rear, preparing long-range abilities. However, what surprised Jui was when he realized a dark figure enveloping his hand, soon spreading throughout his entire body, leaving him completely immobilized. He had been cursed by the feline demon, trapped in that place as the monsters drew closer and closer. The curse began to tighten around his neck, but Joey showed no signs of apprehension. On the contrary, his gaze brimmed with confidence as he proclaimed, "The warrior advances, the priest grants protection, and the mage assists with spells. Cooperation is crucial to the strategy." In the audience, everyone was nervous about what could happen, some even trying to disguise their tense expressions. When one of the feline demons attempted to attack Joey with its claws, our protagonist invoked the power of his necklace, causing it to glow intensely. Within seconds, this glow intensified, enveloping him completely as he uttered the words, "Cross of Sacred Light." Instantly, from the sky descended a massive cross with a strong golden glow, firmly embedding itself in the ground around him. Its radiance was so intense and powerful that the dreadful creatures began to burn in agony. Roars of despair and pain echoed as the golden intensity grew stronger, leaving everyone motionless in the face of the magnitude of the event. This ability was the Cross of Sacred Light, Level 4, and Classification B. It summons sacred light, condensed in the form of a cross through the conjurer, inflicting continuous fire damage with light attribute to enemies within a certain range every second. It didn't take long for the wave of monsters to be defeated instantly, leaving our protagonist Zhou Yi facing the fallen bodies of his opponents. This caused a stir among everyone present, including Director Jia, who exclaimed, "How fierce! All the low-level monsters were annihilated in an instant. Who the hell told me that a Paladin is a support class? That's an area attack skill with a B classification." Talents were also ranked, just like skills, with 7 different levels, from lowest to highest. The higher the ranking, the stronger the effect, and the harder to obtain them. While observing the scene, Joey reflected, "The government usually provides the most resources for C-rank abilities. How can they have B-rank abilities? Joey is not an ordinary boy." Despite the havoc caused by Joey's ability, there was still a minotaur standing before him. With his glow still radiant and the cross embedded behind him, Joey pointed his weapon at the monster and challenged, "It's just you left, come on!" The minotaur, in turn, unleashed its rage ability, accompanied by a much larger shadow than itself. Its eyes turned red, matching with another ability called Supreme Lord and War Stomp. The ground split open, forcing Joey to leap to try to dodge the attack. The creature charged towards Joey, using another ability called Wild Shock, which in its hegemonic state cannot be interrupted by any damage. However, Zhou Yi leaped again and used his aerial cutting ability, striking the monstrosity with a light that sent it flying. He then wielded his sword and began to strike the opponent with his skill, Pure White Blade, but the Minotaur's tough skin seemed to have no effect. Realizing this, Zhou Yi raised his sword and delivered a powerful blow that cleaved the monster in half. Death was imminent for the fearsome creature, with blood spreading across the area as Zhou Yi approached the sprawled body on the ground to check if it was dead. With a firm motion, he crushed the Minotaur's head with his foot, causing a circular sphere to form, indicating the portal to the next level where the boss awaited. The crowd erupted in madness and delirium as the 4-meter Minotaur was defeated with just one axe blow, a truly impressive feat. The narrator exclaimed, "Folks, we can't forget that this happened while the Minotaur was in a rage, and that power is absolutely absurd. What an incredible combination. We love you, Senior Joe." He continued to shout with excitement, announcing that the second level was completed in just 59 seconds. Even Director Gia was impressed. Our protagonist had demonstrated skillful control of his abilities, along with extraordinary power. Clapping his hands, the director remarked, "It's hard to believe he changed classes just a month ago." He turned to the school director and added, "Director Luo, congratulations. The second academy is about to have an unparalleled prodigy." In response, Lu offered a smile, stating that it was time for the academy to produce someone truly exceptional. Since the school's founding, the best student had been the 721st in the province, and Lu hoped that Zhou could once again elevate the second academy to new heights. Suddenly, someone in the audience pointed to the screen, noting that Zhou hadn't rested before facing the boss level, which caught everyone's attention, including the two directors present. Gia had a startled reaction, exclaiming, "What? If he doesn't recover and loses the battle against the boss, it will be a great loss." Lu tried to calm him down, suggesting that Zhou had his reasons and that everyone should just wait patiently. In the provinces of Suzhou and Hangzhou, known for their large population and abundance of talent, the top students often choose to face challenges in solo mode, on nightmare difficulty when they aim to reach the top 100 in the province. To become a provincial champion, they seek to overcome levels in the shortest time possible, facing the same difficulty. Zhou Yi was already in the boss room, where the Bull King, level 16 and unknown classification, welcomed him on his throne with a threat. "Human, for daring to set foot in my palace, prepare to die." The boss rose, wielding an axe, roaring loudly and ready to end our protagonist. Before him, Zhou Yi seemed as insignificant as an ant. Zhou Yi prepared to face the Bull King, utilizing his abilities of Dawn Blessing, Gift of Courage, and Divine Gift, and finally, the Gift of Protection, thus completing the Enhancement Blessing. The Bull King stared at him for a moment, and suddenly, our protagonist was fully equipped with his gleaming armor in its primal form, declaring, "Horned One, I'm right here." Both advanced towards each other for the long-awaited confrontation. Zhou Yi leapt, attempting to strike his axe into the Bull King. However, even with a giant axe equipped with 4 types of enhancement abilities, he could barely cut through the monster's flesh. The tension was palpable, reflected even in his helmet, which echoed his feelings. The Bull King bellowed, swinging his sword down upon Zhou Yi and delivering a blow in his direction. The force was so immense that the impact sent debris flying and raised a dense cloud of brown dust. At the last moment, our protagonist skillfully managed to dodge. With visibility reduced by the dust, a purple spot was perceptible amidst the confusion. Suddenly, Zhou Yi was caught off guard by the Bull King, who then struck him with his axe. The blow was so devastating that it pierced through several stone columns one after another. Luckily, Zhou Yi's Paladin armor protected him, or else his bones would have been shattered. Nonetheless, he reflected to himself, "Fortunately, this fight has taught me a lot, and this blow was not in vain." Zhou Yi extended his hand forward, pointing with just 2 fingers, and uttered, "Spear of Victory." A golden light began to materialize in his hand, followed by several portals through which these spears began to form. This ability, known as the Spear of Victory, was level 3, classification C. It shot a spear condensed with divine power at the opponent, inflicting great damage. Even pinned to the wall, Zhou Yi was now surrounded by several of these spears aiming towards the Bull King. All blades were fired towards their target, but they were intercepted by the boss's axe. The Bull King was much stronger and more powerful, making it impossible to defeat him with brute force alone. However, Zhou Yi knew that to win the provincial championship, he would need to find a way to overcome this adversity. Reflecting on this as he continued to launch several blades against his opponent, Zhou Yi affirmed to himself, "The intention of the examiners is never to put the students in a dead end, so there must be various ways to solve this problem." He began to analyze from the beginning of the fight, seeking to discover an effective strategy. He realized that the Bull King's agility attribute was low, so if he could attack quickly from various directions, it might be difficult for the monster to react. So, Zhou Yi continued to press the attacks, capitalizing on the Bull King's weakness in endurance. Despite having greater durability and HP, the monster was still susceptible to suffering severe negative effects and damage when attacked. Zhou Yi knew he needed to unleash abilities that caused high damage multiple times in a short period. The Bull King finally fell to his knees, unable to defend against the numerous attacks launched, granting our protagonist a golden opportunity. Once again, Zhou Yi fired the blades towards the monster, causing a burst of light as he received a notification that his magical power was at its limit and needed recharge time. Achieving this required precise control of the timing and frequency of releasing the skill. As he moved towards the Bull King for the final attack, Zhou Yi had many dilemmas in his mind. If my final attack doesn't work properly, I will fail the exam due to magical power exhaustion before killing the boss. He wanted to use a big attack to finish him off, but unfortunately, time was running out, and this would be his last chance. Then, swiftly, he drew his axe and delivered a powerful blow to the Bull King. He attacked with all the strength he had left, cleaving the boss's body in 2 parts, thus causing his opponent's imminent death. A message congratulating Joey for completing the Nightmare difficulty Dark Forest dungeon in 9 minutes and 24 seconds was sent, thus recording the result of his evaluation. As he began to undo his armor, another message appeared before him, surprising him even more. It informed him of his classification score as an excellent SSS, positioning him as number 1 in the dungeon. With a look of astonishment as he read this, Joey realized that he had become the top student in the provincial exam of Hangzhou. Feeling an incredible happiness at having achieved his goal, he began to reminisce about the challenges he faced to get there. The previous year, since the time travel, his mother had passed away due to illness, and his sister had fallen seriously ill. He was overwhelmed with high debts and hospital costs. Despite it all, amidst this difficult environment, he chose not to give up, repeating to himself, "If you can't improve your attributes, work hard to enhance your fighting skills and cultivate your fighting consciousness." The appearance of the system was just a turning point in his life. His destiny was still guided by his own hands. It merely gave him the opportunity to work harder than others, making him unwavering in his heart. Completely undoing his armor, Zoe prepared to cross the portal that had opened again, ready to return. As a reward for his achievement, he had gained 5,212 experience points, along with 20 free attributes and 20 skill points. He ascended 3 levels, reaching level 13. He received an equipment called the Belt of Intense Forest, which provided him with 10 physical attribute points and 7 more in strength, along with life recovery effects and physical and magical recovery speed. Additionally, he obtained the Forest Ring, which increased his agility by 8 points and wisdom by 10, also offering life recovery, resistance speed, and magical recovery. Among other items, he also received 10 wild strawberries, which restored his magical power when ingested, and a bull card, classified as gold, an enchanting material that increased the team's power by 20 points after successfully being used. Upon returning to the exam site, he was greeted with warm applause and a hearty reception. Some hailed him as a Paladin god, while others expressed their love for him. His name echoed throughout the crowd, leaving him completely amazed by the wildly cheering audience. The directors of the Academy and Education welcomed him with smiles on their faces, acknowledging that completing a nightmare-level dungeon in just 10 minutes was an honor unseen for decades. They stated to Zhou Yi, "With our years of experience in university admission exams, Zhou Yi could be the best student in Suzhou and Hangzhou. He has a bright future ahead." Zhou Yi was profoundly grateful for these words. After his participation concluded, a fast car swiftly appeared on the scene, leaving everyone in the audience perplexed about its identity and the reason for being there. They soon realized with astonishment that it was a magical item called S-400, capable of entering flight mode. This item was handed over to Director Jia, who informed Zhou Yi that the results would be available in 3 days, and that he would receive an immediate notification when the time came. Director Luo emphasized the need for Zhou Yi to rest, and directed him to use the item. Zhou Yi was taken to the hospital, and as he walked through the corridors, he remembered the last conversation. Zhao Wenbin had quickly fulfilled his promise, transferring Yun to a more luxurious medical room and ensuring a professional team to oversee her condition 24 hours a day. Upon arriving at the hospital, Zhou Yi was approached by a nurse who was with him in the elevator. She smiled in greeting as he mentioned he was there to share good news with his sister. The nurse had heard that he had taken the exams that day, and from his happy expression, she presumed he had done well. As they reached her floor, a light breeze entered the elevator, suddenly turning into a strange chill. This was felt by both the nurse and Zhou Yi. The protagonist noticed ice forming as they reached the 26th floor, and upon opening the door, everything was covered in ice, leaving the nurse frightened and confused while Jo-yi was completely intrigued. Ahead of them, all the people were completely frozen and Jo-yi could only think of one thing: his sister. Without hesitation, he ran towards her room, unable to see anything else in front of him, while the nurse reached out her arm and shouted for him to wait. However, she too ended up being frozen by the strange phenomenon. Upon reaching the room, Jo-yi panicked, shouting her name, but he was incredulous to see a spiritual ice dragon circling around his sister, who was lying on the bed writhing in pain while a healer tried to contain her. With an immediate reaction, Jo-yi prepares to attack, unable to bear seeing his sister in such danger. However, he is stopped by the healer who immediately shouted, "Xiaoyi, stop! Do not attack!" The priestess creates a greenish magical circle, but her hands seem to be starting to freeze as well. The only thing our protagonist could do was to contain his anger as he clenched his fists and watched the imposing dragon spirits circling the room. The trail left by the dragon froze the entire environment, and Jo-yi approached as he talked with the priestess, who explained, "If you attack it rashly, it's likely that Yoon's heart will break." Driven by curiosity, Jo-yi asks why there would be a dragon there, and the woman begins to recount what had happened. Jo-yoon's cold suddenly exploded, freezing everyone in ice, and now the only thing she could do was suppress the cold air on this floor. She advised him to hurry and leave. Jo-yi was thrown into despair, not knowing what this could signify until the priestess stated, "Without a high-level priest, there's not much I can do." It was evident that the woman was doing her best, and that this was already draining her energies, but our protagonist wouldn't give up easily. He looked up, and then his expression changed. A soft, golden light began to envelop him the moment he said, "System, use all my skill points to enhance the slow recovery ability, formerly known as slow regeneration." The slow recovery skill was at level 4 and was being upgraded to level 10. This would allow members within the team, within a certain range, to slowly recover, boosting their physical strength and magical power. The effect would last for a certain period of time. Jo-yi raised his hands, pointing his palm towards his sister, while his glow started to intensify. The ice in the priestess's hands shattered, startling her. The magic contained within a paladin's healing abilities was powerful indeed, even surpassing that of a level 23 priest. Jo-yi was determined to alleviate the situation, his hands extended before his body, which was gradually freezing. Beams of golden light emanated from his hands, providing slow regeneration. As he worked on this, he addressed Priestess Ching. "I will take care of things here. Tell the secretary to bring a high-level priest." Ching emphasized that a high-level priest had a very busy schedule, and the secretary had a meeting with him next week. Even if he could hurry, it might be too late. But our protagonist didn't want to hear any of it. He looked at her intensely and said, "Tell the secretary to bring a priest as soon as possible, and I promise that at some point in the future, I will do something for him unconditionally." The woman understood the request, and despite hesitating to leave him there, she hurried off to fulfill what he had asked for. Yun had been suffering from cold attacks every night for a year. Under the influence of the cold air, her whole body felt intense pain that seemed worse than death. However, recently, the cold had intensified even more, but no one expected that this cold could affect the outside world. Jo-yi struggled to contain the healing power against Yun, while several layers of ice broke before him. He was trying to control his power to resist as much as possible. The cold had even affected the outside, where the day gave way to sunset, making room for the night. Jo-yi was exhausted. The cold was starting to affect him, with layers of ice forming on his face, hair, and hands, but he still tried to keep Yun away from this intense cold. Suddenly, a green sphere sped through the air, cutting through at high speed, bounced on an ice-covered surface, and quickly transformed, resembling a pinball bouncing off on all sides. Yun began to groan in pain, while Jo-yi, covered in ice, shouted, "Wait! Don't touch her!" It didn't take long for the green sphere to hit our protagonist, causing him to roll away on the ground and breaking the ice covering him. The one behind this was a woman, dressed seductively as a priestess, enveloped in a green energy, challenging him to a confrontation. Her weapon looked like a fountain pen, with the tip shaped like a feather, and she sought a battle with the spiritual dragon. As she swung her weapon, the tip cut through the ice dragon. In the air, various symbols began to appear, forming a magical enchantment that slowly bound and sealed the dragon. It was possible to hear her saying firmly, "Resist! Resist! Resist!" Suddenly, the priestess's eyes gleamed intensely, and from them emerged another magical circle. The same design that was in her eyes was now projected outward, pushing the ice dragon back towards Yun. The priestess's energy enveloped Yun, causing her face to glow and dispelling all the ice around her. Then, the woman struck her weapon on the ground, and power emanated from the tip of her sword, thawing the entire room. She said, "You must be Jo-yi. I've heard of you for some time." The waves of power gradually thawed everyone who was frozen in the corridors, and when everything calmed down, the woman turned to Zhou Yi and introduced herself. I'm Kui Liana, a second-class priestess at level 35 from the city of Qingyun. She explained that Director Jia had specifically requested her to urgently treat his sister. However, her mind was filled with thoughts. Firstly, she wouldn't have broken the rules if Director Jia hadn't mentioned that he was the provincial champion, but she also noticed that Zhou Yi had endured the cold for so long that she believed the director wasn't really trying to deceive her. Worried, Zhou Yi questioned Kuei about his sister's illness and whether there was a possibility of a cure. The priestess explained, "The cold air condenses into a form. This is the sign of lineage awakening." Upon hearing this, Zhou Yi exclaimed, "Lineage awakening?" With the arrival of the eternal game, many players opted for alien races such as elves, giants, and demons. With the fusion of the game with reality, players of other races also developed their own lineage traits. For example, humans with elven blood began to have emerald green eyes and slightly larger ears. Similarly, humans with giant blood could reach heights of 3 to 4 meters. Over the past 200 years, there have been marriages between players of foreign races and humans, resulting in the gradual dilution of their traits. However, one exception persisted: the awakening of lineage. The priestess explained that with the awakening of an alien lineage, blessings and curses are inherently linked. Successfully mastering the power of an alien race can facilitate learning and skill improvement, requiring less effort. However, failure can result in severe consequences, from paralysis to instant death. Zhou Yi's sister suffered from the cold due to the fragility of her body in the face of the power of her lineage. As he watched his debilitated sister, the priestess revealed, "It seems that your lineage is rare and related to ice. To acquire this lineage, it would be necessary to alter your constitution." She mentioned that only a celestial treasure called the Freezing Lotus could make this alteration, but it was extremely rare, last seen 30 years ago at an auction where it was bought by a mysterious individual for a high price. Before departing, the priestess warned that within 3 months, the suppression of cold in Zhou Yi's sister's body would cease to be effective, resulting in catastrophic consequences. She offered 2 options: to use the Great Seal to seal the alien lineage, or to seek the Freezing Lotus. Zhou Yi, now calmer, sat near his sister's bed, reflecting on the priestess's words. He pondered to himself, but the price would be, in the future, no longer being able to level up. 5 days passed, and Zhou Yi continued his relentless training. His athletic figure drew the attention of all the girls around him. He had successfully completed a training mission involving a series of physical exercises, such as squats, push-ups, sit-ups, and practice with his weapon. As a reward, he always sought to obtain free attribute points, one of the rewards offered by daily missions. For a paladin like him, physical and wisdom attributes were essential, but he could not afford to neglect the others. The balanced distribution of these 4 attributes was crucial to avoid weaknesses. As he pondered how to distribute his attributes, Zhou Yi received a notification informing him of the results of the university entrance exam. To his surprise, he was congratulated for achieving first place in the provinces of Suzhou and Hangzhou. As a reward for his outstanding results, he obtained the S-Class artifact Cross of Resurrection and 3 new skills called Divine Hands, Exorcism, and Light Punishment A. Additionally, he received 30 free attribute points and 30 skill points. In all news channels, there was only one topic of discussion: the first place in the city of Lijiang. It was surprising that the champion, upon entering the dungeon, was only at level 10. The news reports were filled with articles to be read, containing various information about the champion. Television media sought a position, and the mayor seized this opportunity to make his speech. When Zhou Yi changed classes and became a paladin, I knew this kid would become a great player. That's why I suggested to the municipal government to increase his training. It's due to my good eye. In a restaurant, a group of people called our protagonist cursed. They couldn't accept that the provincial champion would be someone with the paladin class and emphasized how annoying this team support class was. They thought it would be difficult to clear dungeons without a paladin, but one of them pointed out, "Soloing a nightmare-level dungeon at level 10? Are you kidding me? That's not cheating?" One person showed his phone to the other 2, who were stunned. He had images and videos of that moment, and it was all true. The shock of our protagonist's relentless strength kept everyone extremely amazed. They commented on the video, wondering, why does the Holy Light Cross cause more damage than a high-level mage's fire magic? They tried to analyze Zhou Yi's abilities. Weapon blessing, gifts from the gods, blessing of courage. Can someone help me count the total number of buffs this provincial student has? Quickly, Videos of that event were being circulated worldwide until it ended up on the screen of a house, just as we would like it to appear on yours. A man with red hair was closely observing the actions of our protagonist. With a serious expression, he commented, "The clearing time was 9 minutes and 24 seconds. Faster than me." That expression quickly changed to a cruel smile. His eyes narrowed, finding the young player somewhat interesting, but at the same time mischievous for stealing his glory. His fingers played with fire that exploded next to him while he still wore a smile. Our young protagonist was on his way to somewhere near a forest when he received a notification on his phone. The municipal government had transferred 5 million. Boy, what a wealthy municipality. Next, the municipal education secretary of Lijiang also made a transfer of 2 million. Immediately, he called Secretary Zhao and asked what was happening, and in response, he said, "Considering your excellent performance in the university entrance exam, the government will reward you with 5 million in cash and a luxury house. Do you have any preferred neighborhood for this house, or should we choose for you? Wow, can someone pass my contact to this secretary?" Upon hearing this, Zhou Yi was certain that they had received the news that he was the provincial champion. He then asked for help in choosing, and not stopping there, the secretary also informed him, "I heard that the admissions officers from the top 3 universities will be coming soon. Would you like me to send a car to pick you up?" Humbly, Yi declined, stating that he was already on the spot. Not long after, a man approaches our protagonist and greets him, claiming to be the special admissions professor from Rongyang University. However, soon after, another person grabs both their attention saying, "Hey, remember when Rongyang University said that student Zhou was too arrogant?" This man descends the stairs of a helicopter, emphasizing that the university had also reprimanded his colleague, Zhou Yi, for not knowing how high the ski is, and questioning why he is there again. The Rongyang professor tries to justify himself amid the strong wind at the location, saying, "What I mean is that Zhao Tianfu ignored Rongyang University, was dismissed from his position, and expelled from the institution. If you're willing to come to our university, we're willing to pay 4 million. But folks, what are 4 million when he has already received 7? The man jumps from the stairs and lands on the ground, stating that no matter what conditions Rongyang University is willing to offer, he, representing the Magic University, is willing to offer double the amount. He then declares, "Zhou Yi, we're ready to go. It's better to return as soon as possible." Before the protagonist could react, a woman appears out of nowhere, leaving him completely surprised and gracefully says, "I want you." She quickly grabs him and flies away with him. She has long angelic wings, and as they soar through the sky, she asks, "Have you ever considered Jinkyo University?" Whispering in his ear, she asserts, "Student Zhou, we, and no one else, have enough resources for your development. During the 4 years in college, we will provide class practice resources for each academic year." As they were being carried higher, both ended up hitting their heads on some kind of magical circle, causing them to come to a stop in midair. The woman responsible for this claimed that in this competition for first place, it involved resources, qualifications, and reputation, and that Jingjing University could offer the same things as this angel did. With hands on her waist, she questioned fervently, "What's the point of simply kidnapping someone? If you don't come down, don't blame me for being rude." This statement was supported by another man who agreed, saying, "The truth may be bitter, but it's better to face it head on." Excitedly, the man points his finger and says, "Yai, our Magic University not only offers class resources every year, but also a complete set of gold-level equipment for each academic year." Zhou Yi and the pink-haired woman landed on the ground, and she, amiably, justified herself. "I'm not kidnapping anyone, just want to have a polite and friendly conversation with the student, albeit privately." She then asked him to make his choice. The woman who had created the magical circle to prevent the kidnapping introduced herself as Su Mayer, the admissions professor at Suhang University, and stated that she believes strength is king. She emphasized that whenever someone manages to enter the local and celestial rankings of the university, they can obtain resources and even S-class resources, not to mention A-class ones. Furthermore, the university has consistently held the first place in the freshman student exchange competition for the past 4 years, demonstrating Suhang University's ability to cultivate students as one of the best. After this presentation, the two women began discussing game data, while the man expressed that he was already getting a headache from the conversation. Yi pondered over everything. The special recruitment packages offered by the 3 universities were similar, and he would have a bright future choosing any of them. His goal was to acquire greater practical abilities at the university, and thus he already knew which one was most suitable for him. He spoke up, saying, I choose and everyone tensed up, anxiously awaiting his response. He revealed that he chose Suhang University, and this answer, of course, left the responsible professor a bit surprised. Quickly, she opened a special enrollment scroll from the university and asked him to take a look and sign if there were no issues. The other two professors were a bit frustrated due to the consistent choice of Suhang University by students. The girl emphasized, "Well, if you can't adapt to Suhang University, you can transfer to Jingjing." But quickly, the woman reprimanded her, calling her a wretched thief. Meanwhile, our protagonist was surprised by the level of magic the professor possessed, as only high-level individuals cast spells without a wand. Zhou Yi took advantage of the situation and revealed that he had a question, curious to know her level, and with a satisfying smile, she replied, "Level 42 and a level 2 mage." This left him a bit confused, stating that she didn't even look 30. In response, she informed him that the world outside is vast, and upon arriving in Suhang, he would see many powerful and young individuals. Quickly, he opened a smile and said, "Very well," and began signing without a second thought. After obtaining the system, he would find no match among his peers, and upon entering the university, he would undoubtedly encounter many challenges to progress faster and become stronger. Seeing his joy in signing the contract, the professor was sure he was an interesting boy, as his fighting spirit was ablaze. In an instant, a magical circle sealed the contract, solidifying the agreement between both parties. She took back the scroll, informing him that he had a week to pack, and she would pick him up herself later. "What? Is university assistance this fast?" exclaimed Zhou Yi, surprised. The professor winked, explaining that, of course, special students receive the highest level of training as early as possible so they can improve even faster and perform better in the National Freshman Student Exchange Competition. Some time passed, and our protagonist was accompanying two people, one of them pushing his sister in a wheelchair. They arrived at the house they had been given, and his sister's surprise was so great that she exclaimed, "Wow, what a giant room." Her brother was very happy with her reaction, and the secretary accompanying them said, "Mr. Zhou, this is a residence provided by the government of Dao City. It has 3 floors. The second floor has a special training room, and the third has a large terrace and a complete recreation area, totaling almost 1,000 square meters." He then mentioned that he would leave them to not disturb them, and they could rest well. But before he could leave, Zhou Yi asked him to stay a little longer because he had something to ask. He explained that his sister had not fully recovered and was still very weak, even though Qing took care of her personally. He hoped the secretary could also help take care of her for a while. The secretary's actions were of great honor, bowing with a smile. The car was already waiting for Yi, and the professor observed as he bid farewell to his sister. He said, "If you're having difficulties, remember to call me immediately. The elixir given by the priestess must be taken every week, and you might forget. In a few days, Secretary Zhou will make preparations for you to go to school, so you should always listen to him." His sister's response was to cover her ears and claim that everything being said was blah blah blah, a tantrum that was promptly reprimanded by a cheek pinch from her brother, forcing her to say, "Ouch, I heard. Entering the car, his heart tightened as he saw his sister getting farther away through the car window, and the professor quickly realized that it was the first time he was distancing himself from her in this way. She asked him to get ready, and quickly everything around him became a blur as the car sped through a teleportation portal, heading straight for the city of Suhang, a university city. There, various portals were transporting different types of transportation, from cars and ships to spaceships, bringing in countless people. And one of those cars belonged to Zhou Yi, which moved so rapidly that he had to hold on tightly. "No need to rush. There's no need to use the magical teleportation circle, right?" he asked, still confused. He remembered that it was the military who controlled the use of magical teleportation. Even the priestess who took care of his sister always needed to request authorization for the temporary use of a mini teleport. But the professor justified it, saying that the university is associated with the military region, and for this reason, they have large flows of teleportation, which occasionally is very convenient and safe. Upon arrival, he found himself near several rocky structures next to a large portal, where everyone passed through a sign welcoming them to Suhang University. "Wow, this is quite extravagant," exclaimed our protagonist, still amazed. He was still looking around, amazed at the many people heading in the same direction, when the teacher said, "Come on, you need to check in." Suddenly, a kick was aimed at Zhou Yi, who quickly dodged, narrowly avoiding it. As he analyzed what had been thrown at him, he saw a girl upside down. He realized it was a girl who had kicked the man, sending him flying. She had a pouty expression. With fury in her eyes, she said confidently, "I've already told you I don't want to talk to you." She had everyone's attention at that moment and continued, "That kick was a warning. If you bother me again, I won't go easy on you." The young man was stunned, his eyes still spinning, and he couldn't even compose himself. People around him laughed and said, "Young Master Zhen has met his match this time. He's always trying to attract newcomers every semester, and he finally got what he deserved, thank goodness." Witnessing this scene, Zhou Yi found himself thinking that this girl had magical standards and a demonic lineage. The teacher, at that moment, warned our protagonist, explaining that many students and teachers at the academy spoke different languages and instructed him not to be too surprised to see them in the future. Zhou Yi wasn't concerned about it, but he emphasized, "Even if they are from other races, as long as they are on the side of humanity, I won't be hostile to them. I won't hold a grudge against an entire demonic race just because of my father." It didn't take long before fire suddenly appeared in her hands, along with a card on which she stated it was her student ID. He took the card still with some doubts. Ranking? Score? Then she began to explain the academy's structure. First, there's the ranking. Each year has its own ranking, and the stronger you are, the higher you are classified. Freshmen are ranked based on their performance in the exam, and he was in first place, as the strongest of the semester. However, this ranking is temporary, as there will be a competition for the newcomers in a month, and everything will be rearranged according to the results. She stared at him for a moment and said, "From today, you will be everyone's target. Everyone will be after your position." In response, Zhou Yi stared back with a smile and shining eyes, saying, "Since I'm in first place, I don't plan on leaving that position." Then the teacher continued to explain that the next aspect is the scoring system. Freshmen receive scores based on their ranking, which can be used to purchase meals, equipment, potions, and skill books, among other things. If you have enough points, you can get whatever you want. In addition to the ranking, there are two ways to earn points. First, the point missions. You can use your identification card to access the mission board and check out some suitable missions, and upon completing the mission, you will receive points. The second is the celestial and terrestrial rankings, where they receive a fixed amount of points based on the ranking. She continued to explain, saying, "There are 5,000 students in Suhang, and many want to enter the celestial and terrestrial rankings. You cannot be arrogant." As she explained all the details, they saw some students entering a room where there was a large portal. She emphasized that in addition to everything she had explained, Suhang has 3 realms. The first realm is the Goblin Dungeon, with the entry level ranging from 17 to 21. The second realm is the Twisted Forest, with the entry level ranging from 23 to 26. The third and final realm is Purgatory, with the entry level ranging from 28 to 31. They entered a training room where several people were training in pairs, as if they were in a PvP arena. In addition to levels, people needed to spend a certain amount of points to enter the realm, and with that, they could change the training room to practice and increase their level. Their opponents could be both robots and real people. Zhou Yi noticed a pair choosing their training types, and then he saw other people dueling each other. The strongest had absolute authority, with the most resources. That was the way to survive in Suhang. The visible smile on our protagonist's face already indicated that he was genuinely pleased. Suddenly, a group of students greeted Miss Su, the teacher accompanying Zhou Yi. As they passed by, everyone observed the new student and began speculating about who the young man the teacher was personally escorting could be. Since they had all been led by seniors in groups of 10, they questioned whether he had entered by recommendation. A man from that same group named Wang Li explained, "You may not know, students with special recruitment will have a specific teacher assigned to take care of their admission. First, to familiarize them with the school as quickly as possible. Second, to have an easier time recruiting them into their houses." Soon after, he asserted, "So he's the top student of this semester." The girl with the demonic lineage was in this group and a little uncomfortable with people asking Wang Li to describe what this student was capable of. Wang Li then explained, "Zhou Yi, first place in the Suzhou district, level 13 Paladin." Everyone was astonished, saying together, "What?" They found it impossible, as Paladins are support class characters. They had even heard that the second place, Shen Lin Feng, was a level 14 Berserker, and that was exactly what they couldn't comprehend. How did a heavy support surpass a Berserker? While everyone analyzed, some girls admired his beauty, to the point where he was handsome enough to be a celebrity. The girl pondered and marked in her mind that Zhou Yi was the number 1 among the freshmen. One of the guys in the group noticed her distracted from all the discussion about our protagonist. Then, gritting his teeth and in a fit of rage, he said, "I think this first place is just a farce!" Startling everyone. His statement was so loud that it caught Zhou Yi's attention, and he stared at the red-haired guy who maintained his posture. With a confident smile on his face and pointing his finger at Zhou Yi, he said, "Liu Jing, level 13, punishment knight, and number 38. I suspect you don't have enough strength to be ranked number 1, and now I'm challenging you." This attitude was quickly reprimanded by a bespectacled young man, advising him not to waste time, but Liu Jing completely ignored him, telling him not to worry and quickly moving away from his hindrance. However, the first place had already been unanimously decided by the director and 5 university professors, so it's impossible that it's wrong. People said that Liu Jing wanted to use the number 1 spot as his stepping stone because the Paladin is not a strong class, and it wouldn't be strange for people to want to step on him for that reason. Zhou stared at him and responded to his challenge by asking, "Why should I accept your challenge?" In response, the young man asserted, "Because of 100 points, that's what you'll get if you beat me. But if you lose, you don't have to give me anything." Both had a malicious smile and were confident of victory. For Zhou Yi, he only thought, "For my historical future, I need to accept this challenge. But if I want to set an example, I need to be more ruthless. Only then will they remember." And so, our protagonist raised the stakes when he declared that he would have 300 points. His expression changed drastically, having a more intense look when he said, "I will fight you." The young man felt the immense power emanating from Zhou Yi, making him feel pressured in the environment, especially with the increased score at stake. If he lost, it would be a very high price to pay. A comment from the people watching was made, "I only got 400 points by ranking 40. Liu Jing is 38th, so his points must be very close to mine." In addition to concern about his score, the red-haired young man was worried about a particular person, causing even more astonishment in him. With the delay in responding to whether he accepted our protagonist's counteroffer, Zhou Yi ended up turning his back while saying, "If you don't have the courage, I'm leaving." But then the young man shouted, 300! Let's enter the ring!" Zhou Yi looked back with a fantastic smile and a penetrating gaze, saying, "Ah, so you do have some courage after all. But we don't need a ring." Our boy began to emanate his mana, enveloping his entire body in a golden light, and adjusting his hands, he commented, "If you don't drop to your knees in 3 moves, I lose." After this incredible proposal, the young man with red hair and our protagonist were face to face, ready to begin their battle in pursuit of 300 points. Teacher Su was among them, instructing that, after the count of 3 seconds, they could act, but without using lethal moves. This whole situation was observed by the passing students. Both stared at each other as the countdown continued, and upon reaching the number 1, the young man with red hair, Liu Jing, did not hesitate and advanced toward our young hero with a fearless look. He began to consider that the punishment knight resembles a paladin, as both are hidden classes derived from the knight class, but they stand out in distinct ways, with the former being more focused on causing damage while the latter is more support-oriented. For Liu Jing, this would be easy as long as he attacked quickly when the paladin wasn't strengthened. Liu Jing glanced sideways, hoping this action would be enough to catch the attention of that girl he had kicked earlier. "She'll look at me differently now," he thought. So he leaped, getting above our protagonist, and activated Bloody Cut. With all his strength, he descended with his sword, creating a red blade in the air, commanding it to fall upon his opponent. However, the impact toward Zhou Yi wasn't enough to make him budge. As the red-haired young man approached, he was met with a powerful kick to the stomach, which he could hardly believe. As a result, he was thrown away, so far that his body collided with the wall, causing significant damage. It didn't take long for him to fall to his knees, his body battered, and blood continuously gushing from his mouth. Zhou Yi took a deep breath and said, "Ugh, how boring." He had thought that Liu Jing had some trick up his sleeve, but it turned out he didn't even land a single blow. Everyone present was surprised and speechless at this, and quickly the red-haired young man's friend went to check on his condition. Upon examination, he turned to Miss Liu and informed her that Liu Jing had broken 5 ribs, was suffering internal bleeding, and had passed out. She, who was busy with the system cards and didn't show much concern, just asked for him to be taken to the priest for treatment, and then turned to Zhou Yi, inserting one of the cards and informing that the 300 points had been transferred to the student card. Everyone commented on how difficult it was to block the advance of the punishment knight with the bloody cut. And Zhou Yi had done it with just 1 kick, realizing that this was why he was number 1, with a power completely different from the other levels. This definitely caught the attention of that sweet girl, who had demon ancestry and, upon seeing him, thought, "The difference in your strength stats is at least 20 points. So, she took the initiative and, despite feeling a bit embarrassed, approached him, calling out his name. He turned to her as she said, "Please, fight with me." At that moment, he activated his inspection ability and realized that she didn't have other lineages, but was also equipped with a legacy. Legacy was a type of class for weapons, and this was the first time our protagonist was seeing this. He definitely wanted to test her power, so he simply replied, "Okay?" It didn't take long for the place to fill up with people and that moment to be recorded. On one side, Zhu Yi had his mystical light warhammer, which had a 3-star gold quality, and on the other side was the Daring Girl, with an ancestral dark moon sword, a 3-star legacy quality. In the audience, comments were expanding. The freshmen are fighting as soon as they entered the school. Oh, they're just newbie duels. Approaching from that crowd was one of the captains of the Aurora Club, a level 29 lancer named Li Dongsheng. He greeted Miss Liu, asking why she was at the scene. The robot responsible for recording this battle began its countdown, starting the duel. At that very moment, the girl gripped her sword and advanced, the energy of her power emanating around her body. Shadow Cut was an ability that advanced towards the enemy at the speed of light, while Hurricane Strike lifted the hammer and swung forcefully, causing damage and knocking out nearby enemies. The energy of both was being concentrated in a way that everyone could feel the weight of their powers. She was enveloped in a purple aura, while he was wrapped in a golden aura. The girl's sword shimmered just like her. Sparks could even be seen all around, symbolizing the demonic slash. This ability covered the weapon with elemental darkness mana and unleashed a powerful slash of darkness towards the enemy in front of her. Zhou Yi had the impression that all of this would be fun, expressing a huge smile, then began swinging his hammer, saying, "Excellent. Finally someone I can fight with for real." As the girl reached him, she managed to dodge him, counterattacking. Both were using various techniques. While she attacked him from below, potentially knocking him out in the air, he attacked her head-on. Their movements were so frenetic that they jumped from side to side while facing each other non-stop. At a moment when they both attacked head-on, they expelled their energies, filling the entire environment. Several times their attacks hit the barrier that prevented them from being hit. As the fight unfolded, everyone watching was simply astounded, and Captain Sheng, who was also observing, wondered if what he was seeing was really a fight between two students. "Without a trump card, the spiritual swordswoman will soon lose," analyzed the captain, drawing the attention of another group representative who asked, "What do you mean? They seem evenly matched to me." While the swordswoman activated the enhanced blocking technique that absorbed the damage received, Captain Sheng explained that, initially, she would only block 1 out of every 3 strikes using her sword, as celestial weapon users typically fight by defending themselves, retreating, and constantly avoiding major attacks to preserve their stamina. When the opponent shows an opening, they strike immediately. However, our protagonist showed no signs of preserving his stamina, raising doubts for the captain. Either he's foolish or he's absolutely confident in his strength. Zhou Yi attacked once again with his hammer, limiting the swordswoman's movement and always forcing her to block the hammer, resulting in her being pushed back. She controlled her speed with the sword planted in the ground. It truly was a temperamental paladin fighting without holding back against a beauty. "I'm done warming up," Zhou Yi exclaimed as his energy materialized around him, activating his blessings like the gift of God, the gift of courage, weapon blessing, dawn blessing, and the gift of protection. As they were activated by the system, his golden mana increased the intensity of his glow. The pressure of his power weighed on the environment, creating a luminous impact in the area, like a tunnel enveloping Zhou Yi. As the swordswoman felt this pressure, she realized that this was the true strength of our protagonist. Zhou Yi pointed his fingers and, with an intense look, said, "Victory Spear." The swordswoman quickly moved a short distance, using the ghost cut technique to once again dodge our protagonist's charge. With a smile on his face and his eyes sparkling, Zhou Yi knew she would use that move, and then prepared something surprising. An arrow approached her face, causing a bit of panic, but when she realized she was surrounded by several arrows ready to pierce her, followed by a large axe coming towards her. Trembling from the attack, the girl tensed up completely, expecting her end. However, that moment arrived in the form of words asking, "Do you want to continue?" The swordswoman stopped and, at that moment, locked eyes with him. Zhou Yi stood there, radiant, with his axe raised on the ground. And then, somewhat dejectedly, she replied, "No, the outcome would be the same against such overwhelming force." Our protagonist knew she hadn't given her all. She hadn't used the swordsman ability or the elemental power of darkness in that fight. And when Zhou Yi asked her about it, the girl gave him a gentle smile, saying he had figured it out and said, "It's just a duel. Of course I wouldn't use my trump card. Besides, you didn't go all out either. I saw your exam video. Add me. Let's duel again another day." Here, she definitely caught our young man off guard. The girl was completely enchanted and radiant, absorbed in her phone while Zhou Yi turned to Miss Liu and asked to move forward. The teacher found it very interesting that on his first day, he had earned 600 points, also noticing that all the special recruits had started treating him more cautiously. Definitely for her, this year would be intensely challenging. The day was cool, the sky completely clear, and in the midst of Rocky Mountains was the location of the dormitories. The teacher explained that the freshman dorms were situated there, on the small hill. The regular student dormitory was at the base of the hill, while the special recruits dorm was at the top. Not only that, the special recruits' dorms were true independent mansions, filled with luxury, with differentiated equipment according to ranking. They arrived at a place with a huge door. That was where our protagonist would live from then on. He took out his student card and used it to open the door when suddenly his teacher spoke. "Right, I heard you're looking for the freezing lotus." Zhou was briefly startled, but then leaned against the wall, listening attentively to what Miss Lu was saying. She explained that a group had spotted it in the Storm Mountains, but they had given up on collecting it because it was guarded by high-level monsters. This information dated back 6 years, so it couldn't be guaranteed accurately. Shortly after, our hero was surrounded by computers, all of them analyzing coordinates and providing information about the mountains. The Storm Mountain range had emerged after the land had merged with the game, and it was vast, containing various treasures. Its flora and fauna were exotic, to the point that even tertiary awakening classes didn't dare to enter it lightly. For Zhou Yi, his current strength would only allow him to face high-level monsters. However, the system rewarded him with a life-saving item after completing the exam, the ability to resurrect after death. Considering this, there was no more hesitation. He decided that he would set out after acquiring some skills and equipment. Zhou Yi clicked on the computer, being taken to a categories screen that showed him 10 results from his search. The computer recognized our protagonist as rank 1 and displayed all the Holy Knight abilities that could be studied for free. These were Sacred Light, Sacred Punch, Light Protection, Light Shield, Sacred Retaliation, Light Ball, and Sacred Healing Wind. Our protagonist moved the mouse to the side, opting to buy the physical damage immunity skill, an ability that could be used without weapons and seemed quite reliable to him, along with a long-range attack skill. His joy was completely evident when he realized that everything he had bought was 100% free, but he still needed to spend points to acquire the forest set that the exam had rewarded him with. In the blink of an eye, he was already in the Storm Mountains. The place was very dark, and it seemed like he had been teleported by the smoke still surrounding him. Then, a loud explosion was heard, causing a strong rumble. The wind was so strong that it took off his hood as he wondered what had happened. Driven by curiosity, he decided to take a look. The clothes he was now wearing were equipment from the forest set he had bought, spending many points. Meanwhile, we are taken to Jiang Chu Ran, the swordswoman. She was lying down, staring tirelessly at her phone screen. Then, she plunged into the pillow, leaving her phone on the bed because of the text conversation she had with our protagonist. She wanted to go to the gym together, but he informed her that he was away at the moment. Curious, she asked where he was going, to which he replied that he was in the Storm Mountains. Her phone started buzzing, so she quickly turned, thinking it might be Zhou Yi, but it was someone else. A girl with bobbed hair and doing her nails asked, "What's wrong? This is the 23rd time you've sighed while looking at your phone." Jiang Chu replied on the other end of the video call that she had met a very special boy. Not caring much, the friend wanted to know just how special he was. Frustrated, Jiang explained, "I challenged him yesterday and used some of my charm abilities during the fight, but he remained completely unscathed. There was not even a hint that he would succumb to my temptation. His willpower must be terribly strong." On the other side, the friend listened to the incredible story while fixing her nails. Upon hearing Jiang's decision to go to the Storm Mountains, the friend was shocked by the idea. Somewhere in a dungeon, a speeding car was spotted heading towards a cliff, launching some kind of monster downhill. To prevent an uncontrolled slide, the monster dug its claws into the ground trying to break. Inside the car, a mechanic-class woman named Zhu Xiao fired several devices that rolled down the hill towards the creatures. They were bombs that exploded immediately. Only one of them managed to escape, jumping away from the explosion, but its luck was short-lived, as inside the car was also a summoner named Tian Run, who summoned the Spirit of Frost to attack it. The creature, with agility, dodged the attacks, reaching the car by leaping from side to side. From inside the vehicle, Xiao shouted, "Time is up!" which was the precise signal for the shooter Zhu Dan, who was on top of the car, to aim and start shooting at it. The firearm began firing non-stop, and multiple shots hit it like a flamethrower. She shouted, "Now!" And at that moment, a swordswoman appeared swinging her sword. Her name was Su Qing Lian, and she landed after landing several blows on the creature. Mechanic Xiao, seeing the excellent teamwork they had performed, celebrated with her friends, saying they had succeeded. However, at that moment, Tian summoned an ice shield, shouting to everyone, "Move!" It seemed that not everything was over, as the creature unleashed a fire blast almost hitting Lian, who managed to dodge it. However, the shot hit the car, striking the shield and flipping it completely. That shot destroyed the entire path, leaving a trail of fire up to the car where they were. The summoner summoned a spirit to help lift the car so she could get out, while Xiao checked her body right there. When Tianrun asked if everyone was seeing it, an alert was issued, warning of something coming up behind her. They were demons, one of the 5 other extremely violent races that loved devouring living beings. They were above her, opening their mouths for another shot, and that group had used all the cards they had up their sleeves, but they only managed to kill 4 of them. Faced with that fearsome creature, they wondered, will we really meet our end here? The creature then unleashed a fire blast like a dragon towards the girls, but our hero arrived riding a wolf that leaped from side to side towards them as well. With conviction, he said, "Sacred storm," and a glowing cross held the fire like a shield. Behind the creatures, another similar cross appeared, confusing them. Then, a whirlwind of fire began to form, surrounded by several crosses. At the center of this hurricane were the creatures, groaning in agony. Our protagonist emerged with his forehead glowing, saying, "Light converges, the storm falls." And so it happened. A bright sword fell from the sky towards the vortex, plunging with all its might into the ground and causing a great impact, throwing debris in all directions. Zhou Yi was mounted on a large white wolf, his expression conveying as much power as he possessed. Our hero caressed the wolf as if giving permission to act, and then the wolf opened its mouth as in a roar, releasing a chilling power that completely extinguished the fire spreading through the area. Witnessing this impressive display of strength, the girls were left speechless, filled with doubts about him. Zhou Yi approached them, extended his hands, and activated his slow regeneration, gradually making the girls feel better. Su Qinglian held her summoner friend, looked at our protagonist and said, "Thank you, Zhou Yi. I never imagined you would acknowledge us." The Blue Phoenix team was one of the 3 main teams in the school, and of course, our hero knew that too. With a smile on her face, Lian felt embarrassed by his response, but soon her expression changed, and she asserted that, although her light element could have an oppressive effect on their opponents, they were still dangerous and needed to return to base to refuel together. Zhou Yi had already explored all the external areas for a month, but still had no news about the Frozen Lotus. He was concerned about the rookie competition starting in 3 days, and could only continue his search after that event. With his hands tied, he could only confirm that they indeed needed to return to base. So, she turned to her friend, gave her a signal, and she nodded. Then, Lian crossed her arms, surrounded by a mechanical blue energy, and with a concentration of wind in the area, she said, "Soul scream of metal, echoing ghost speed soul, giant glow of mecha spider." Below her, a circle formed, and by saying recombination, a mecha spider materialized before them. This robot was simply gigantic, leaving both Zhou Yi and the accompanying wolf enchanted. The mechanic climbed on top of her summon, urging them to enter because they had no more time to waste, while the swordsman just thought, "Is she falling for these traps? Look at those cheaters." They swiftly traversed the DG with the mecha, while our protagonist asked Qing Lian, "Are there demons right at the beginning of the storm range?" She replied, "Our team has entered the outer area of the range many times, but this is the first time we've encountered them." Then, Zhou Yi concluded that this could mean the demons were coming from a deeper area in the mountains, or even from a nearby dimensional rift that had released them. Qinglian confirmed and said this would need to be reported to the military base once they returned. At this point, Zhou Yi asked if there was a mage monitoring the entire area at the military base. She answered his question, explaining how the base operated. There are many monsters in the storm range, and to prevent them from escaping and reaching the cities, there's a refueling and trading base built by the military force at the entrance, and the army guards the mage tower that monitors the movements of monsters in the mountains. But the demon levels are very low. Zhou Yi listened attentively but couldn't believe they were low level. Level 20 platinum demons cannot be considered low level, no matter how you look at them. Qinglian continued explaining that the mage tower was primarily monitoring epic and legendary level monsters within the deeper area of the map. If the presence from the other world was lower than the mage tower's minimum setting, it might not be able to detect it. Qinglian lowered her gaze, looking somewhat worried, as she said, "If there's a dimensional rift, why are they sending low-level demons?" Her thoughts turned into a whirlwind of concern. If the military encountered the demons, they would be exterminated immediately. Because if a rift could allow level 30 demons to pass through, it could also allow creatures of level 50 and higher. Reflecting on this, Qinglian came to the conclusion, the otherworldly action will not only waste lives, but also expose the rift's location. Anyway, this isn't something I should worry about. I'll just deliver the information back. However, when they least expected it, several voices emerged with a single desire: food. Several monsters hungry for human flesh, upon seeing them pass by, ran towards them in search of food. Zhou Yi and Qing Lian were atop the mecha when they saw a strange light cut through the sky and land in front of them. This presence, thought our protagonist instantly, while Qing Lian exclaimed, "Damn! There's someone there surrounded by demons!" Immediately, Zhou Yi leaped onto his wolf and asked them to move forward, ensuring that he would soon catch up with them. Qing Lian's concern made him hesitate, as she wasn't sure how many creatures were there, making everything very dangerous. However, the wolf propelled itself in a leap, and quickly he and our protagonist were far away from them, and the only thing they could hear was the increasingly faint voice calling their name. Wrapped in his intense and bright energy, he could only think of one thing: I can't forget this presence. Why is she here? In the distance, a group of people sat in a circle, conversing in the middle of the forest. They discussed the presence of more than 20 platinum demons in the area, referring to a girl who wouldn't last long. They were unsure whether they should help her or not. Someone suggested they shouldn't, as they were trapped there and couldn't even protect themselves. A noise broke the silence, catching everyone's attention, and at that moment someone said, "Judging by her strength, if she manages to escape from the demons alone, she will surely have a bright future." The girl they were referring to was surrounded by several demons, her fight already seeming to have begun, as intense smoke hovered around her from the fierce combat. She frantically wielded her sword, but the creatures managed to dodge, yet she didn't give up. This young girl was our demon descendant, Jiang Churan. Clenching her teeth, she realized that these creatures had discovered the time limit of her ability and were surrounding her without attacking, precisely to drain her strength. Moreover, they moved in groups of 10, scattered across the plain, not counting those she had already eliminated, and yet more and more appeared, instantly filling their ranks. Surrounded, she concluded that there was no chance of escaping back to base. One of the creatures, with yellow horns and 4 eyes, opened its mouth and lunged towards her. Jiang Churan needed to defeat it before her succubus power faded. Then, she heard someone say, "Let thunder fall," followed by a golden light from the sky, consuming the demon before her eyes. The dust turned yellow, and several holes formed in the ground upon impact. While in her succubus transformation, she locked eyes, recognizing whose power it was. She could see Zhou Yi arriving atop a swift wolf. He raised his hand to unleash a new attack and shouted, "Jiang Churan, step back!" One of the demons roared so loudly that the sound waves became visible, shaking everything around. Jiang Churan had to cover her ears to avoid further damage. That roar transformed the entire body of that monster into berserk, a body of fire. The roar of that creature allowed it to gain even more strength, and they all advanced towards them. Jiang Churan shouted, "Zhou Yi, run! This is the demon's berserk mode!" She enveloped herself in a purple aura, knowing that the demon's power had doubled and that Zhou Yi couldn't fight against it. In her mind, only one idea echoed: if I self-destruct, there's a 90% chance I can kill it and protect Zhou Yi. However, our protagonist grabbed her by the waist and placed her on his lap, still mounted on that wolf. She, enchanted, just called out to him, "Zhou Yi," seeing him maintain his heroic stance. And the blow that had been prepared for her was wasted on the ground. Zhou Yi uttered, "Punishment of light," and everything around him started to glow golden, with several beams coming from the sky, punishing everything they encountered on the ground. With each hit, an explosion. Zhou Yi, who was a little further away, said, "No wonder everyone wants to be a magic class. Killing monsters from a distance is great." But things weren't over yet. The creatures continued to come without stopping, advancing across the terrain more and more, focused on the divine Paladin. It wasn't long before Zhou Yi and Jiang Churan were surrounded by a significant number of those hideous creatures, totaling 180 demons. He thought, I can use area skills to deal with them, but now they're scattered. We made a lot of noise, and all the demons from the plains have gathered here. Strategically, Zhou Yi placed his fingers, activating his golden power on the girl's forehead and said, "Jiang Churan, go left to attract the demons. Don't focus too much on engaging in combat." But she was still stunned by everything happening. "Zhou Yi," she quickly said. But slow regeneration had been activated, giving her the blessing of dawn, blessing of weapon, and God's gift. She knew that these were all buffs from the Holy Knights team. Still riding on the White Wolf, he managed to check his current stats and realized all the buffs he had gained, providing him with a 25% increase in all attributes. But she could barely analyze everything because our protagonist said, "Go." He was eager to put his plan into action. He dismounted, leaving her with it, and charged forward with his hammer towards the nearby creatures that were already waiting for him, their mouths open and ready to attack. But the creatures received such a strong and central blow that they seemed as if they had been caught. That's when he activated his aura, and with his golden eyes shining, raised his double-ended hammer and threw it at them, causing a strong explosion of friction from all sides. From Jiang Churan's perspective, she could only see his shadow and thought, incredible. Every statistic was increased by 25%. It's almost like doubling my power. As far as I know, no holy knight at level 16, not even at level 25, can do this. But at that moment, it was no longer time to think about anything else. She needed to do exactly what he had asked, and it was at that moment that one of the creatures positioned itself in front of her, and now, with Zhou Yi's golden aura, she felt even stronger to face it. His wolf also fought, grabbing one of the monsters with its mouth and throwing it away, while Jiang Churan blocked one of the attacks from the creature with her weapon. Meanwhile, Zhou Yi was striking blows in all directions, destroying a portion of the creatures once and for all. A thick smoke spread across the battlefield, but there were still living monsters stealthily approaching from behind. One creature drew a large sword and advanced toward him, wielding it towards his neck, catching him off guard. However, a purple aura swirled around the area and caused the sword that was about to pierce our protagonist's neck to be thrown away. The one responsible for this was our dear Jiang Churan with her Shadow Whip. This ability concentrated demonic miasma into a whip-like form in her hand and was used to strike the enemy, causing great damage, in addition to dark damage. Zhou Yi looked at her, thinking, classes with holy light really attract most demons. Most of the plain demons have already been drawn here. I can use this now. Suddenly, Zhou Yi activated an ability that looked like a football charged with his golden energy. This ball passed by Jiang Churan, surprising her, but she soon realized it was a protective field called Level B plus Sacred Light Protection. It protected teammates within the sphere of holy light at a certain distance and granted immunity to physical damage for a certain period. He shouted for her to stay within the area while he invoked the Sacred Cross. Zhou Yi radiated with a strong glow of his divine energy, and the cross had been successfully summoned. Summoning the holy light in the form of a cross behind him caused continuous sacred fire damage to all enemies within a certain distance. His skill was already at level 7 with a range of 200 meters. The light from the cross shot out and struck all those creatures, causing them to groan loudly in pain. Jiang Churan was surprised to see this and supported our protagonist from afar. However, there were still some larger creatures ahead of him. Like giants, they challenged him, and Zhou Yi, confident, simply chanted, "Under the holy light all darkness will be defeated. The light converges, the storm falls." His cape billowed with the intensity of that concentrated power, and the golden light grew even stronger, maintaining the sacred cross behind him. The storm he invoked was a level B, and was made of holy light at the desired location, causing sacred damage to all enemies within a certain distance. Several crosses fell from the sky and came to the defense of their summoner. As they struck the ground, dust from the impact rose. The crosses began to circulate, creating a kind of hurricane that consumed everything nearby, eliminating numerous monsters at once. That hurricane swept everything away in a grand spectacle that was incredible to witness. The people who were in the clearing observing the initial battle were surprised, questioning if this was really the work of humans. "This is insane? Who is this?" they asked. One of them even suggested, "Shouldn't we introduce ourselves?" But the man who should have responded was paralyzed with surprise, thinking, "Apart from me, at level 26, the other 5 are at level 24. We couldn't even fight 10 demons together, let alone alone. This man is very frightening, and he's so young too." People looked incredulous, some even cheering, but everyone knew they should befriend him. Suddenly the mech created by the group earlier was arriving, and the girl Zhu Dan shouted, "Zhou Yi, we're here to help!" However, the group of girls was stunned to see that he alone had defeated those demons. The wolf held Jiang Churan's arm in its mouth, and Zhou Yi maintained his pose of, "I finished everything here." With this result, the system announced, "Congratulations on advancing to level 17, receiving 15 attribute points and 15 skill points. Congratulations on advancing to level 18, receiving 15 attribute points and 15 skill points." Zhou Yi opened one of the potions he had acquired and drank it all, forming a green barrier around himself. He opened the system screen thinking, 180 demons, 60,000 experience points. It's a pity there's a level limit for how much experience a class can receive. Otherwise, I would have received more. There, our protagonist had gained a few more points in power, speed, constitution, and wisdom. Zhou Yi, holding the bottle he had drunk from, thought, "My mana has increased a lot, but I have many high-level skills and it's still not enough. I should ask the teachers what to do when I return to school. They must have a solution for this." In that field marked by an incredible show of strength, one of the girls from the group asked, "Zhou Yi, did you handle all of these?" And another one even stated, "Your strength is a bit beyond my imagination." However, his attention was focused on Jiang Churan, as she could barely stand, falling to the ground. And that's when they asked, "What's wrong with her?" She had overused her power, depleting all her strength. Suqing Lian, the swordswoman from the girls' group, asked, "Did you face any strong demons just now?" And in response, Zhou Yi said, "The ones with the highest level among the demons I killed are the golden ones, level 23. There are no tough enemies." Lian pondered over what our protagonist said, which made him notice and ask what could be wrong with that. It was then that she explained, "The Demon Legion has a general, just like the human army. If the general is not here, it means the main troops of the Demon Legion are not here. We should not stay here. We must return to base to restock immediately." Everyone agreed immediately and followed the path. Just behind the bushes, some people were still frightened, and one of them asked, "Boss, I think they're leaving. Should we come out now?" He confirmed. But as they left that place, they felt something strange, a strong presence, but they didn't know what was wrong. The boss stated, "That densely concentrated demonic aura." With widened eyes, they knew it was a legion of demons. The group stood before a blood-red glow when they realized that various demons were approaching. A creature resembling a dragon called Demon Spawn, level 30 and of legendary type, and another called Flying Fire Dragon, level 24 and of the golden type. Neither of them had classified abilities. With their appearance, an emergency alert was issued at the base. One of the on-duty personnel quickly grabbed the radio and shouted, "Confirmed invasion from another world, level 4. All troops prepare for combat. Confirmed invasion from another world, level 4. All troops prepare for combat." The alert was heard by everyone, and promptly some of the best players were on the scene, and several announcements were made. Snow Dragon Corps' Night Squadron. Cease training immediately. Gather at the Teleportation Plaza. Snow Dragon Corps Priest Squadron. Be ready to initiate rescue operations and keep your mana full. Snow Dragon Corps Logistics Squadron. Initiating Magical Core and Magical Shard relocation. Snow Dragon Corps Mage Squadron. Location locked at 11, 14, 54, and 1505. Constructing large-scale teleportation formation. Quickly, a combat force was prepared, and everyone was already in their teleportation circles, all of this being commanded by Major Xu Yuzhou. The Major drew his sword and shouted a speech. "I will be a sword that cuts through all thorns. I will be a shield that protects my land." And so, everyone present repeated, "I will be a sword that cuts through all thorns. I will be a shield that protects my land." Elsewhere in that universe, a legion of demons was also forming in front of a throne, where their leader would likely be. One of the creatures brought news, stating, "Every demon in the legion is personally chosen by me. I only lost a dozen or more people in my half-year time on Earth, but in the final phase, before we returned to the sacred realm, hundreds of our people were killed." Seated on the throne, that creature was a skeletal demon, its body covered in thorns and what looked like eyes inside its mouth. He said, "There's half a day left before we can return. I'll allow you to act freely before we depart." And so, the entire legion thanked their majesty with a loud war cry. A menacing voice declared, "I will never forgive them," atop a large, thorny white dragon. "I will take your souls and burn them with the fires of hell," he said, as he gazed down at the group of humans below him. With a flick of the fingers from that demonic being atop the dragon, a great legion of demons was summoned, from various different levels including Platinum, Gold, and Legendary. Lian analyzed all the information about those creatures and began to think about what she saw. Golden Gray Demon Knights, Platinum Gray Demon Mages. Quickly she turned to our protagonist and said, "The Blue Phoenix team will protect you. Find an opportunity and escape immediately." Our boy was somewhat confused, but the girls simply confirmed, "That's right, you must survive." Lian led the team, knowing that Zhou Yi was the most powerful genius she had ever seen. An elite person like him was worth protecting with their own lives. But what they didn't expect was for a magical circle to start opening up, bringing with it the Snow Dragon troop. The Phoenix squad was excited to recognize them and said enthusiastically, "The Snow Dragon troop are people above level 30 who have undergone their second awakening, and even the Major is a level 51 warrior who has completed his third awakening. We are saved!" Seeing this, our protagonist only thought, "If they could teleport, why didn't they come here?" The demonic voice laughed loudly and declared, "Don't worry, humans. Your army cannot breach the barrier of my magical formation." This information left Lian puzzled, thinking that this could be something impossible, but the reality was that the circles were forming farther and farther away from a red barrier. One of the soldiers even asked, "What's wrong? How did the landing point deviate so much?" Another person who touched the barrier explained, "This is the demon's large-scale barrier formation, the Dark Firewall. Once opened, the internal space cannot be teleported into, and external attacks will also be blocked." She turned to him with concern and said, "We need at least 2 troops to have the power to break it, or we can only hope it either ends or dissipates." The Major was already on the scene, and the first thing he could think of was, how long do we need to wait? The waiting time was worrying. 5 minutes could be too late, so he took a deep breath and ordered, "Find and record the information of the people inside. Once the battle ends, contact their families to collect their remains." He knew people didn't stand a chance and expected the worst. At that moment, Zhou-Yi's system reported that legendary demons had been detected and new completion missions had been created. The mission was, kill the demon's offspring. He would receive a grade S talent as a reward, along with fortifying medicine. Our protagonist smiled, thinking, a new completion mission. It's finally here. So he took his position, activating his aura, ready to face this new challenge. The demonic majesty noticed the sacred aura our protagonist possessed and marked him as responsible for the death of his people, exclaiming angrily, "To show my respect, I will break your ability with my own hands, and I will finally let you die in endless agony." He advanced toward Zhou-Yi, but our protagonist didn't retreat. Instead, he immersed himself even more in his aura, activating the golden one. The dragon opened its mouth, beginning to gather a bluish energy and casting it over everyone there, and Leon shouted Zhou-Yi's name again, while using her hammer to unleash her ability. The 2 abilities clashed. On one side, the purple lightning from that fearsome dragon, and on the other, our paladin's golden shield. Zhou-Yi's ability ended up hitting the dragon, shaking the stability of that demon and causing it to rapidly crash to the ground. The impact raised a dust cloud, and amidst it, Zhou-Yi approached that majesty, preparing to strike. However, the demon skillfully sensed his presence and blocked the blow. Our protagonist's ability left a trail on the ground. Nonetheless, he still received another blow from the side, hitting his face. In the last moment, Zhou-Yi managed to move to the other side of his opponent. Lifting his sword, he struck the ground, and a brilliant blow shot up from the ground to the sky. The demonic majesty could only think, how is this possible? This human is only level 18, yet he possesses the power to rival me. Zhou-Yi held the handle of his powerful hammer, positioning it on the ground. He stretched his fingers and said, "You're quite resilient. By the way, you're the first legendary monster I'm facing." But that creature didn't want much talk and cursed him as a damned human, pointing his sword at him. Yet Zhou-Yi didn't stand still. He threw his cross at him. Quickly, the opponent stepped on the dragon, watching the attack approach. Zhou-Yi knew that the blade of pure white had successfully inflicted a stun effect, so he raised his hand and uttered, "Punishment of light." With the discharge coming from the sky in the form of golden rays, the demon tried to defend himself with the fire demon shield, enveloping himself in a purple aura to protect himself from any possible attack at that moment. While our protagonist concentrated power in his spiraling hands, he told himself, "Not even the punishment of light can do anything against this. It seems I can't kill this difficult and powerful legendary demon using regular means. I can only use the thing that the system rewarded me with after the exam." Even though the attack didn't have the desired effect, the demon felt a strong pressure coming from our protagonist, and that couldn't be ignored. He opened his mouth and called for his generals, and a powerful roar was intoned by those thousands of creatures. The order given was clear: death. Zhou-Yi rose in his power, and everything around him was enveloped in a yellow aura filled with shining crosses. He raised his hand high, and from afar, we began to see a strong wind swirling like a sphere spinning on all sides. The people present were mesmerized, following everything that was happening. The light shone on everyone's faces, not just the humans, but also the legion of demons. Zhou-Yi moved his hands ceaselessly, making gestures that resulted in the formation of a circle above the creatures, resembling a portal, and a golden hand emerged from above them. The demonic majesty looked up, feeling as though something terrible was approaching. The light began to consume him as he continued to observe. The hand struck the same spot where he was. The wind and light were so intense that the group of girls struggled to keep their eyes open, barely able to believe that Zhou-Yi would be capable of using such a powerful ability. Jiangchu ran thought in that moment, "My succubus lineage is truly terrified." It wasn't just incredible for them, but also for the Major, who looked open-mouthed at what was happening inside the barrier. This power was enough to rival regular magical cannons, so he quickly asked, "Have you figured out who's trapped inside?" His subordinate only replied, "They are all students from Sukang University. The one who released this ability is the top student of the year, Holy Knight Zhou-Yi." The Major then closed his eyes, commenting on the top student of the first year. He felt regret that the level difference was too great because if Zhou-Yi had more time to grow, this ability alone could have killed the demon's offspring. The Major was disheartened. That demon roared loudly, not accepting the humiliation he suffered. He began to invoke a purple demonic aura, proclaiming, "How dare you offend the great Urimas?" A horrendous cry echoed from that demon, commanding the entire legion of fire demons to advance. Then, the creatures in great number also activated their auras, thirsty for blood and terror. Numerous demons surrounded Zhou Yi, and if we didn't know he was the protagonist, we would also fear for the life of the #1 ranked player of the first year. The majesty of those creatures mocked, "Stay calm, he's just an 18-level holy knight." And the mage agreed. That's right, he must have exhausted his mana after multiple battles. Without mana, we can defeat him with our numbers alone. However, Zhou Yi's expression indicated the opposite. Despite his ability, Hand of God, having consumed all his mana and his mana recovery being slow, he trusted himself. It was then that he revealed his ace in the hole, the ability Divine Invocation. This secret ability of Holy Knights doesn't consume mana and isn't affected by passive abilities. By activating it, the user can tap into the power of the God of Light to boost all 4 stats based on body resistance. All Divine and Light abilities temporarily receive a 5-level increase. Additionally, health, stamina, and mana recovery increase 20-fold. This effect lasts for a period of time, entering a weakened state after it ends. And so he did. Suddenly, a beam of light, like a tunnel from the sky, broke through the demon's magical barrier, dissipating all hands trying to grab our protagonist. Some of those demons stood open-mouthed at what they were witnessing, while the demonic majesty also expressed surprise, asking, "What's happening?" In the midst of the light tunnel, several wings began to form, and ancient inscriptions circled among them. It was then that we saw the same golden-haired angel hold Zhou Yi. The feathers of his wings fluttered down like a beautiful rain, enchanting everyone present. Some even reached out their hands, hoping that the sweet feathers, bathed in golden light, would fall into their hands. However, as this happened, screams and cries of despair echoed among the demons. They were being consumed by divine light.